that. And you see, but the millennials constitute the majority of county assemblies. Mm-hmm. You need to go down there and see how county assemblies are actually working out quite well.
Go down where?
In counties.
Why are you saying going down?
It's early morning. It's early morning. I don't know why. Where were you all over the weekend?
You're making it sound like it's a lower tier. It's a lower level. You need to go down there. It's like go down.
Not really going to the ground, and you will realize that now those are the people of this particular generation. Behind them, by the way, are people who were born from 1997 up to 2013. That population is about 31%, 32.2%. Then for us, the guys who were born between 1980 and 1997, that is 31.5%. Unfortunately, we always talk about young people. When you look at 2022, the voter register, we only had 29% people aged between 18 and 35. As registered voters. That is way lower than what they actually talk about out here. So that is, we are not so ready. And then the generation that is the millennials a little bit has got a problem in a generational conspiracy, working together. Today if you were to call Raila Odinga or even William Ruto and told him I have got a job of this particular type, he will know whom to call immediately. I don't know if I were to ask you, Latif, we have got a job of a rocket scientist. Do you know one? I said, Eric, not you.
A rocket scientist?
I'm just saying an example. You will realize that you might struggle. If I were to ask you of 47 friends of yours who can
struggle for rocket scientist. At least I know one. He's called Dr. Victor Mongera.
At least moja. Yes, but I'm just saying. So if I were to ask you, Eric, do you have 47 friends who can become governors in 2027? Your age mates?
80.
Many.
People you can call and they will pick your call on the third ring.
After
do you have 200
before they become governor?
When they become? Yeah, so as a generation, we have not really had a proper intergenerational link with the people ahead of us. Okay. That's why you see a little bit of push and pull. So what is happening across the board? Like, I'll give you an example. In 2032, Moses Wetangula will be 79. Mudavadi will be 72, 73. The deputy president will be 69. And you can actually go ahead. I don't want to talk about the other people. You can look at that and then see who properly will be the leaders of this country. It will be the Sakajas of this world, the Murkomen, even though Murkomen slightly falls over the other side. It will be the Mutula Kilonzo, although he and Murkomen are also a little bit on the tip of the other side. Of the other side. So across the country, we are having a generational handover, and we don't know how to handle it. What is missing, in the words of Muhisa Kitui, is a mix of the old and the new to actually ensure that the republic, the succession works for the republic much more better.
Okay. Yeah. Let me ask you something. So you've painted a picture of the country whereby we're looking at a mix of leaders actually does exist. Yeah. Folks who are currently engaged in dispensation, whether it's governance, whether it is political, whatever it is, or whether there's a hybrid of the two, right? So that's already is there. The mix that we look for in future politics, and trust me, future is not 10 years from now. Future in this case is next year. Future is a year before campaigns begin for 2027. Are you saying that those who make the mix of the younger political leader in this country is not prepared for the hardline positions that we're seeking?
I think, first of all, the generation we have now, let me talk about the millennials proper. This is the most educated generational cohort ever since Kenya was created. They are the most schooled, most exposed. We are talking about in excess of 89% of them. At least when if our ancestors were ever to wake up today, they would be amazed because this is what they desired to have. This is what they dreamt to have. But as to where we are going as a country, are we prepared as a generation?
That's my question.
What is preparation?
When you talk about preparation, you're talking about being able to meet opportunity, or rather being able to ride a tide at its highest peak. The millennials, again, allow me to quote somebody that ordinarily shouldn't be quoted. He said that we are the generation, the 1, 2, 3, 4 generation. One wife, 2 children, a 3-bedroom, a 4-wheel drive car generation. Millennials are typically...
Why should he not be quoted, if I may ask?
I will not even name the name.
And that's why I asked, why should he not be quoted?
Ordinarily, because he might not pass off as a good example. But he said that this generation that we have is the 1, 2, 3, 4 generation.
Right.
Millennials are relatively mean if you are to compare them, selfish if you are to compare them with Generation Z. Everybody's about my degree, my wife, my children, my money. That's why even amongst them, they don't have so many friends.
Arnold, who is Z?
The Generation Z.
Yes.
The Generation Z is this cohort that was born from 1997 to 2013. The Generation Zers now. A majority of them are still within the learning institution. They are not yet, not so many of them. About 5 million of them, 5-6 million, are now within the bracket you will call the 18 and above. Okay. But the bulk of it is still in school and in college.
Okay,
so if you were to compare...
Z.
Yes.
So where would I fall in?
I don't want to say you fall amongst the ancient of days.
Oh, no, my dear friend. If we are speaking facts.
Yeah.
And yours is not categorized.
Not even prehistoric.
Yeah, yours is.
Okay, so Arnold, I guess the question is still hanging
yes,
and beckoning an answer.
I want to actually go to the answer.
What then constitutes preparation for what we're talking about in terms of leadership?
Number one, there has been a lie that political succession in Africa does not exist and that mentorship in Africa does not exist. Eric, if you were to look at your ancestors, you will realize that when they went to war, they took grey-haired men, grey foxes, and those were the people they put at the battlefront. People who had lived sufficiently so that the young men would actually be on the second and third tier. There was a reason why they did that.
Not dispensable.
Not dispensable. These were people who would hold ground much longer, and even if we lost them, at least they would pass on the skills to the others.
Not dispensable.
I don't want to use that term. That term feels not really that they had lived. They were the most experienced people, and they fought well.
Okay.
But then, so that the young would watch them and learn, so that when their day comes to hold fort in the front, they will do it quite well.
Okay.
So in Africa, succession has always been there. Our ancestors and our forefathers always did that. So, number one, can we talk about proper mentorship? There are a lot of leadership courses around. There are a lot of fellowships going around. But you still realize that we struggle to get a good leader. So a good leader is not necessarily a product of people who are prepared, who are educated and everything else. It's also a product of society. So the majority, and we talk about democracy being like milk, that the top of the best substance in milk is normally the cream. It goes to the top. Mm-hmm. So however much we really are looking at a better country, we also, as a community, as a society, might not be ready for a better country, because we will only give out what we are made of. So education is one thing. It's actually a prerequisite for leadership. But then leadership is much more than education.
What is it?
Leadership calls for much.
You're still not answering the question.
I'm trying to go
what
around
constitutes
it.
preparation?
I do not want to be
You've mentioned
accused
some words here
of bashing my own generation.
No. You bash your whoever generation.
It's okay. If it's needed, it's needed.
Why must it be bashing? If it's truth-telling, so be it.
Truth-telling today
Arnold,
is
you've mentioned
bashing.
mentorship.
Yes.
Is that a part of the ingredients for preparation?
Yes.
Mentorship. What else?
So there's education, which actually is a glut.
What is education?
Formal education?
Formal education, that is. Let no one actually tell you that education is not important. Mm-hmm. It's very, very important when it comes to...
going to school.
Going to school is important when it comes to leadership.
Okay.
Because you are not going to actually make sense of billions, even millions.
Sawa.
As a member of parliament.
Get it. Second, mentorship.
Mm-hmm. 3 is the issue that is a little bit fluid on ethics. Mm-hmm. Because ethics are derived of mores, or you want to call them morals and whatever, from what the society is. Mm-hmm. Now, of all that, of the so many ingredients that make leadership, the part of leadership, and then there is the management part of it, being this as just one line, that on the left you can put leadership and on the right you put management. You find that then we start to struggle, because somehow we never deliberately went out to prepare leaders. People are coming into leadership for self-actualization. Mm-hmm. Yet leadership should, in and of itself, be something that we work on. If you go to the Scandinavian countries, for example, you can actually tell a prime minister at 17, they will already be in a youth league of a party. They actually go to school while they are already within a political party. Today, you make a little bit of money, and now we have got the problem of what I call the synchronization of our politics. You go out there, make a little bit of money, and then show up in the political scene, dazzle the people, and you get elected. So then you find us sloganeering and running around. The politics of thinking. I have looked at old documents, like, for example, the KPU manifesto. It is so deep that sometimes when I see the debate we have on TV and radio, it's so shallow. And I'm talking about 1960s, where Jaramogi, whom you would look at, he was at that particular point. Today, he will be looked down upon because he was a diploma fellow, right? He went to Makerere, I think did a diploma in education. But if you look at...
That is what was available then.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. If you look at the KPU manifesto then, if you look at the KANU documents at that particular point, and then you compare, I've looked at Mwai Kibaki at 29, talking on old black and white footage. I've looked at Tumboya, who would be considered as a Form 2 dropout. All of you talk about the sessional paper number 10, right?
Yes.
We talk about it a lot.
That's the famous one.
Very famous one.
There were other sessional papers, yes.
You look at it and you realize that a lot of times the people who we have properly schooled are not really, have not taken time to go and do proper in-depth, or rather they're not deep. They're not even skin deep when it comes to leadership.
So going to school is not...
It's just part of it. It's not sufficient.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
We'll continue this conversation shortly. 7:30. Arnold Maliba is a strategic communication advisor at the United Democratic Alliance. This is UDA. And we are here to talk about generational change in leadership, succession politics in this country. Okay. So we've got very many leaders who are in the old age. We know the independence leaders have exited the stage. The second liberation leaders are the ones who are currently in there, but they'll soon be exiting. So who's that? Who's coming after them? And that's a conversation we're having. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyan.
Hey, Manda. Hey, Manda.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay you for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to, she's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, you know, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 16 later. Looking into a partly sunny Nakuru at 13, we'll see highs of 27 and highs of 26. In a sunny Nyeri at 12, and in Eldoret, partly sunny at 13 with highs of 25. Into Mombasa, it's sunny at 26 with highs of 32, and we'll see highs of 32 in a sunny Malindi at 27. Kisumu sunny at 19 with highs of 29, and Kakamega sunny at 18 with highs of 30. Kampala is sunny at 18, going to highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 31 in a mostly cloudy Dar es Salaam at 27. It's 17 and sunny in Johannesburg, and we'll see partly sunny conditions going to highs of 32 in Mogadishu, and it's sunny at 14 in Addis Ababa, going to highs of 24. Lagos is hazy at 23 with highs of 33, and the highs will be 33 in Kinshasa, where it's mostly cloudy, currently at 25.
Chilled Spice.
We're knocking on the door of traffic hour right about now on the Thika Superhighway Heavy, coming towards Survey and then through the Pangani Tunnel. It's going to take some time to get out of this one. So if you're there, you're there. You really can't do much about it, but you get through it. And as you get to the fork in the road that goes towards Muranga Road and Wangari Maathai, then traffic starts to flow freely. So patience will pay this morning. As you're coming off of Gong Road, that's really busy this morning as you get towards the junction between Naivasha Road and then heading out towards Riara Road or then down Gong Road itself. There's a bit of a hold up there, and it's really busy on Langata Road. If you've left, kudos. If you haven't, might want to think about doing that right now. Right, Odinga, we will take off some of that traffic, so it should be all right. It's heavy coming in from Cabanas going towards North Airport Road and Bakassi, the junction of Outer Ring, and then through towards the Eastern Bypass. Very busy coming in towards the AP Training College junction. Keeping an eye on things as we get into traffic hour. A busy Monday morning is what it is. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X.
SpiceFM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Communication advisor at UDA party. We're talking about generational succession in leadership. Arnold, if you look at the leaders from independence, and then the leaders who took over in the 90s, the second liberation sort of leaders, right? The ones that we have currently.
The younger group of those leaders of that time.
Yes. If you look at them, was there mentorship and hand-holding and then a passing of the baton from the independence guys, the Mois and the others and the Kibakis to this other leaders?
I think there was quite a good practice right before independence, coming to the independence, and all the way to 2000s when our politics a little bit got murkier. And then, because you can literally tell who was whose student. Ideologically, you can actually follow through and trace. You see what Jaramogi could do. He is called the Doyen of opposition politics because you can actually tell whom he brought up. He has got a lot of political children, quote unquote. Some of them now already passed on and followed him up. But you would see he had his own respect. There are people he brought up.
Like?
Quite a number of people. Then there is what Moi did. Moi was a serious mentor. He brought up so many people. Whether you liked Moi or not, he actually had a streak of people. And the government was so regimented in a way that you will tell the next crop of leadership. Then now, the hand-holding business at some point becomes a little bit murkier when we bring in the politics of money. And this new competition where you are in a party and everybody is competing against everybody. You are in a set. Today, I think for my generation, I would still speak for the millennials and say that at least for those of us who've been in leadership, a few of us, and I can actually point out to many guys who've done marvelous work, that in the spaces you are. Like, for example, I have spent most of my adult life working for and with young people. That's why ordinarily sometimes I struggle to actually define myself any other way other than a youth worker. I've been in that particular space for the longest time. Worked in a political party as a youth league chairperson, worked at the National Youth Council, was Kenya's youth rep to the UN. I have been in the youth space through and through. At some point in 2017, a friend of mine asked me, what is your regret? And I told her that when I came to the youth space, I didn't find as many people who could understand what the youth space was more than me. And I doubt I've done enough. And she told me, if I give you a chance, will you work around? That is a lady called Karen Wakoli. She runs an organization called Emerging Leaders Foundation. And within that particular short time that I worked with her, I was able to actually bring in as many young people as I knew and taught them hands-on how to understand the youth sector, how the youth policy. A lot of these kids now going around talking about youth policy experts and everything else, most of them have actually come from my mentorship classes. And that is one of the most satisfying things I've done in life so far. Unfortunately, when I came to that particular space, I was a journalist before I got into that space. I had no one to hold my hand. I went in, did a little bit of stupid things. Everybody has got a few things they could regret. I organized a demonstration that went up to State House. I doubt anyone has done that before. I went to the High Court, brought down the gates. So some person who didn't know me reached out to Facebook and told me, I have seen the things you're doing. I have followed news a little bit. I even went and got hold of a minister She knows herself. She's a governor today. It wasn't nice those days. When I was still young and getting in, just with raw energy and passion. So somebody reached out to me on Facebook, lest we condemn them wholesome. And he told me, if you continue this way, these people will kill you. I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
That person was called Cyprian Nyamwamu. Cyprian Nyamwamu didn't know me. He saw what I was doing. He watched the news. He saw an interview I was doing, I think, with Mwakazi and Mutegi then. And he said, I have watched news in the last 3 months. You keep on featuring, and I don't like the way you are doing things. You can't go to the High Court, bring down the gates and everything else. I think, again, we are the only people who ever did that. You can't take people to State House. You cannot get hold of a minister and lock them in until there's breaking news. You can check online. Waziri atekwa nyara na vijana. I mean, you need to know how to balance energy, this strength you have, these strategic plans, and how you also make. Because I'll give you an example. One day we were able to get hold of a minister, I'll not name, because we had issues with the Youth Fund, we had issues with the National Youth Council. But when they gave us an opportunity to talk in the boardroom, do you know that we didn't say anything?
You had nothing.
We argued and argued amongst ourselves until we were told. And to organize to a level where you can capture a minister without a shot being fired and bringing in 500 people to a third floor is quite a little bit of thinking. But when we got there, we realized that there was a set of skills we didn't have.
What happened?
Because when we got there, we didn't have even a spokesperson. We were so good at organizing kinetics to match, to capture the place. But we didn't even prepare the who would speak for us, how we would extract commitments. I tell you, even if anyone amongst us had lost their lives during that particular match, it would have been to nothing, because when we sat down, we were not able to extract commitment from government that had said, okay, now you've come this far, now can we talk?
So you lacked a mentor.
We lacked a mentor at that particular point. So we made mistakes, but a few other people would come in belatedly. Some of us tried to correct that by ensuring that a lot of people, and that's why, like, for example, I'm so happy today that almost 30 to 40% of young people you see on TV talking today are ones I actually negotiated for. Niliombea show. I think this one can actually talk well. I think this one can work out. So that challenge, we have got a challenge that when it comes to handover, we have got this thing where cities people talk about leadership is not given.
CT's people being people of his age, or CT's people being people of his...
He will defend himself.
Can you classify what you mean by this?
People?
Because if you're speaking about age, then I'm going to ask a question even before you make your point.
It's not age.
It is what?
It is, there is a saying in cities community that says that leadership, I can't speak it very fluently, but it says something to the effect that leadership is not given. Leadership is taken.
It's taken. Okay.
So this high noon type of engaging in leadership is wrong. When we know that leadership is a high calling, we cannot subject it to intrigue and drama that tomorrow when you have got the mechanics, that all of us have to look at Julius Caesar as the best politician that ever there was. Because literally everything that Julius Caesar did is what politicians are doing today. That he knew how to employ violence, he knew how to employ a little bit of negotiation, he knew how to bring in intrigue, and that there is no deliberate leadership that grows to the next generation and hands it over.
Okay, yeah. Arnold, I think what we are dealing with in this situation is that you have a whole bunch of people. Expertise is not a question. Talent is not a question. Skill is not a question in terms of what they're able to do. I do believe that there's a cabal of leadership today that is not going to release those reins. It doesn't matter how good you are. And I do agree that unless you take it, many a politician have sat in this room and told us, well, you know, I am a senator today, or I am a member of parliament today, and I strive for a higher ground, but I went to my party leader telling them that I wanted to do 1, 2, 3, and they actually told me, no, that's not a good idea. How about you start here first? I believe that the very few people who sit at top leadership today are actually selfishly holding on to the reins because they know, number one, that the younger leadership has something to offer. I think that those who do have the skill, who have the mentorship, who have the education, who have all of that in the bag, would pose a particular threat to the positions they sit in today. And because they hold that power, they stop, whether however you want to look at it, whether economically, with money, whatever, They stop this younger generation from coming in, the people with maybe a larger breadth of ideas from coming in, because that position is sweet, Arnold. You can't run away from it. But if we are going to actually see a new crop of leadership come in, a new crop of ideas, new talents, new skills being applied at that level, this cream that you talk about that's currently occupying that position has to move. That's in my opinion. I don't know what you think about that.
You want a brutal and honest conversation about this?
Well,
I don't know whether we are ready to have that particular conversation.
I was hoping we would have started that when we started the conversation.
I actually want to ask Arnold the question. Arnold, which show are you in this morning? This show that you're in, what is it called again?
This man does not have anything brutal or honest.
No, I actually want to actually say...
When someone threatens you, you want me to be brutally honest. They have nothing.
I know, he's trying to incite me to actually say...
Okay, so what's the brutal honest thing?
This is the truth. This is the truth. If you are to look at the West, and you look, for example, at the Labour Party, you can tell the next generation of leaders. You don't struggle. When we have got leaders...
How do you tell?
As in, when you go to the Labour Party, you can actually see how regimented it is. That the next bullet in the chamber, once this one is dispensed, this is how this one is going. Forget the mechanics that bring in the next person. But you should not struggle to tell the next layer of leadership. So let's start here. And I'm sorry, I'll begin from the opposition side. If you are to look at Raila Odinga and his people, it is said that he has mentored so many people. But let's talk about that backward politics of regional leadership.
Okay.
If Raila Odinga were to exit the political scene today, who in Nyanza takes over him? They would join us, we people from the Far East, Far West. I mean, when I talk about the Far West, in Western, everybody thinks that they are leaders. Of course, that is democracy, it's a good thing, but it's not fair that a community should not have a critical mass of young people that can actually stand watch when called upon for leadership. It's not fair.
You're saying it as though it's a bad thing.
Which one?
Where everybody thinks they're a leader.
Democratically that will be good, but then when everybody is a leader, then nobody is a leader. That's the truth.
You see, that is one side of the coin.
Now, that's one side of the coin. I wanted to talk about it this way. But when you come on this other side, let's be fair to William Ruto, that when he came to power, one thing happened. Look at Rift Valley where he comes from. You can actually, God forbid that something happens and there is a sunset to him. You can see there is a Murkomen, there is a Cherargei somewhere, there is a Sang somewhere. Can that be said of in Nyanza, for example, city?
Did he select those people to come into...
deliberately.
No. Deliberately. Arnold,
yes.
Did these individuals decide that they wanted to take up positions, or did we see a leader at a particular position who is grooming these individuals and saying, you come and let's prepare you to take over the next seat?
Did those individuals decide? Everybody is desirous. You're going to meet a lot of young people with ambition, but they have no hand-holding. He used the word hand-holding. So it's one thing to desire. I'll give you somebody...
No. Don't give me another one. Just answer that question, Arnold. Did we see a position, or did we see a situation where the person at the top has told these individuals that you've mentioned today, let me keep grooming you? Or did he find them along the way? Let me keep grooming you, keep coming, let's keep working. Let's get to this place where you at some point will eventually take over from me. Did we?
Yes. I would. Let me speak about what I know. Number one, I'm looking at what has happened in Rift Valley, for example, in the last 10 years. We have seen a deliberate move to ensure that young people feel important spaces. You can see that. You cannot compare the type of leadership, for example, in Rift Valley and a part of central Kenya with the rest of the country. In other places, I will tell you, you can actually see young people in their 40s still consider themselves children because the people who make decisions there, and I'm talking about even on basic political decisions. So it's two-way. There is the reaching out, and there's also the teachability of our generation. We also have got a little bit of a problem sitting down under somebody. And from experience, as a person who's taught government before and also working in political spaces, I'll tell you this. Statecraft is a little bit difficult. It's much more difficult than just winning an election. That is why it is easy for people to win elections, alafu wanakuwa bubu wakishashinda kura. They were so eloquent when they were campaigning, but immediately they become members of parliament, they don't know what to do.
I remember your job.
No, I will not mention names. Here we're talking about a generational. We are talking about a generational handover. So a generational handover here being that it's two-way. That there is little hand-holding in some spaces in this country. There are others that are very, very, very deliberate. Some of us have been lucky either by force.
Do we have that in Kenya?
Yes, we do.
Do we have, from the current crop of national leaders, do you have any that you can say that these are so deliberate on mentoring those below them and wanting them to succeed them, not to use them?
Thank you.
Because now I'm at a certain level where I cannot be the one who's running on the streets. So I need somebody who can run on the streets. I'm at a certain level where I cannot be the one who's going and insulting people left, right, and center. I need somebody who will be that kind of mouthpiece. I need a couple of dogs. Do we have that deliberate generational mentorship that will lead to clear succession, that you guys, you will take over the leadership of this country?
And it is clear.
And it is clear you'll take over the leadership. For what you need to do is think this way, do this way, move in this direction. When you're making that mistake, go and make the mistake calm.
I'll
give you an example.
Even if it's structured by a pastor, where somebody knows, you know what, I'm like an uncle. An uncle knows what you're doing with your nephews and nieces. When you're with your nephews as an uncle, you know you're teaching them to become adults because you have a responsibility. You're not using them to go out there and sell mitumba or sell karanga and bring you the money.
I'll give you an example. If you look at the crop of about 52 principal secretaries, they are largely youthful.
Okay.
If you remember the first list that came out, the shortlisting, it had the seasoned public service type bureaucrats who had been there for a very long time.
Yeah.
I do not want to say that I had that I was told, but I know that the president was confronted and was told that a lot of these young people that you'd love to become principal secretaries are quote unquote rookies. They do not understand, and the president said, "Teach those young people how to run government. If you cannot teach them, then I will teach them myself." First of all, that is faith in young people, younger people.
Is it?
Because, yes, it is deliberate. Because if we are only going to talk about, there is also ageism when it comes to leadership. And in this country, it's a big thing. People don't see it, but you'll realize that you have got a meeting, even a NEC meeting, and then the older ones, probably because they're the leaders, they then retreat the meeting after the meeting or the meeting before the meeting. Here, we have got a president who said, go and teach those young. Do not tell me that you have got these bureaucrats who understand government. Teach these young people, because tomorrow they are the people who will actually be required to run government. That is a deliberate decision.
I want to pause you there.
Can I finish the second one? Because I know we are about to get to
Yes, that's why I'm pausing you.
Yeah.
Because the government system that we have in this country did exactly that. It didn't need the president to utter it. That's why we have even a government school. You rose up the ranks and you were taught. You didn't wake up one day and you became a principal secretary. You never did. You went through the ranks. So even in government, you could tell this person has reached the level of director, he'll get to this position. You could tell. And that's why government was consistent in the way it did things.
Which shoots everything that you're saying, Arnold.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying.
When you say
that they are individuals. I'll give you, like today, the country's chief economist, a gentleman called Gakuo. When we were elected, let me give you again, telling stories is important. When we were elected to the National Youth Council, we went there, all of us, under 35, a lot of us had never been in government, so we didn't understand. We thought that we will come with the activist mentality, where if you want something, it's done now. We knew nothing about government then. This gentleman told us, he was the director youth then, told us, there's a way government. I want to teach you as young people to understand. This is how you do a board paper. This is how you engage a CS. This is how you go and talk to the president. But before that, when we came in, that was the youngest board.
Were you working in government then?
We had been elected to government then. At that particular time, I had come from the private sector.
Okay.
Youth Council.
You see, let me take my argument further in two statements.
Yeah.
Everything you are saying was being taught to people who were not working in government but were being brought in.
Yes.
Anybody who worked in government will know there are exams you sit in government, you move on. It is structured. It is clear. Everything you're saying, the government
so that you could tell. You see those things they're telling us about the UK.
But politically,
you could tell the next crop of principal secretaries.
You could.
Today, you cannot tell the next crop of principal secretaries. Why? Because the guy will wake up tomorrow and decide, done with these young people.
What you forget, City, look at this. What you forget is that at some point, the job of a principal secretary became a reserve of the retiring people in the public service.
Actually, that story is incomplete. The reason why that happened, if you remember, there was a golden handshake that took place. And that cadre of people who are in their 40s, many of them took that handshake. There was a gap.
They exited government, public service.
So these older people who should have retired, should have retired, but there was no one to take over. You should know this.
Be that as it is, we're talking about a generational handover.
Yes.
The point is this, that when you go around, you realize that there are parties. Like, for example, in UDA, we have got a youth league. Most of UDA, allow me to... No, let's talk about that. A youth league... Eric, let me tell you this.
Tell me.
Who is the youth league chairperson of ODM? How old is they?
Who knows, man?
You know. How old are they?
Who knows?
How old are they?
All these parties have youth wings. Even Kanu had a youth wing.
I know. Kanu had a proper youth wing. Yes. Anyway, we are talking about succession here.
When you're an only party in the country, you can have...
I was talking about...
Who is it? Who's the UDA?
I want you to find out and how old they are. Even the Constitution Article 55 does not define them.
Who's the UDA youth?
No, let's get moving. I want to talk about UDA. Let's talk about UDA.
Does UDA have a youth blah blah blah?
We have got a youth league. We have got literally from the SG to most of the ED, SG, and everybody. All of them are young.
Is there a succession?
Actually, the oldest person in our party
is there a succession
is the director communication. When we talk about oldest.
Is there a succession plan?
Is there a succession plan?
Complete.
Who is the next person that it is clear to everybody that we know in the hierarchy of things as we go on in the years, who is the next person then that has been groomed, that has been handheld?
That question is very tricky.
It isn't tricky. The fuel on which political parties in this country run is uncertainty. You cannot say that a political move to employ younger people is so that you have a succession plan. Nope. In my mind, you want to have sycophants.
Let's get real.
People who can bring you to
want dogs to bark on your behalf.
That is ageism because they think young people cannot have a head of their own. They can only be sycophants. So we also know serious sycophants who are old.
You just told us, youth without mentorship, youth without coaching, youth without all that is empty rhetoric.
I wanted to qualify a point.
This by yourself,
Eric, can I qualify my point?
You gave us your own example.
Can I qualify my point? This is it. You have got youth leagues that are bouncing castles. On Sundays when parents, let's get real. Yeah. On Sundays when adults are talking serious business, there's always a bouncing castle somewhere in entertainment just to keep children busy.
Yeah.
So in this country, if you look at a lot of youth leagues, you realize that they are bouncing castles to keep the youth busy.
Yes.
So you will deny young people places where they can make decisions.
We agree.
Would that be said of UDA? No.
Yes.
The whole party is run by young people. The whole party.
The next person
in fact,
in place?
It's not just the next person.
So the bouncing castle is from Sunday to Sunday in UDA?
No, for UDA, there is no bouncing castle. The party is run by young people. And you can look at our president. Is run. We are not talking about places where there are no budget. You know, all youth leagues have no budget. Has a party a budget? Yes, it has a budget. Has a party decision-making power? Yes, it does. So that's I'm saying this. That in places where young people and women league are always a flowering process, we have got one where people actually make decisions.
Do they now?
They have the resources. They make decisions. Okay. And it's not like we come up with the decisions and say, okay,
where are they? Who is the chair of the youth league, youth forum, youth in UDA?
We have got quite a number of young people. You are running away. I know where the question is supposed to go when we talk about who is the next person. I am running away from that question because
succession is clear. If there is no chair, if there are very many people, you just go back into Western Kenya where you told us there are many leaders. There are many leaders in Western Kenya. What did you say that means?
And now, can
many
we talk
leaders
about...
No, we can't. Many leaders in Western Kenya, you told us means
about
no leader at all.
Can we talk about
many youth leaders in UDA means no leader at all. Forget it.
That's not true, Eric.
Arnold Maliba, thank you. You'll come again. But it's important we talk about succession.
You've just rigged this interview.
No, you talked too much.
You've just rigged this interview.
I don't know what. I don't know. I can't remember. I read about. You read UDS.
Hii ni Anglo-leasing unafanya Eric. Hii poa.
Anyway, 8 a.m. Thank you very much for joining us.
So
Arnold Maliba is a youth leader. He's a strategic advisor at UDA. 8 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
I'm Dennis Asset. The state agencies have assured that Kenya's ambitious nuclear power program is advancing and intense consultations are ongoing to ensure the timelines are met. Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority and the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency officials gave their assurance in a meeting in Nairobi. The two sister agencies pledged to collaborate with various relevant stakeholders, including the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, Austria. Kenya plans to commission its first research reactor between 2030 and 2034. It also hopes to have its first nuclear power plant up and running by 2035. A site for construction has been identified at the coast, with further feasibility studies ongoing. Now, two people were lynched by a mob at the Kibuye area in Kisumu Sunday following allegations of mugging and killing a woman on Saturday night. Now, the Patel's Kondele Highway was a battlefield as police lobbed tear gas canisters to disperse an irate mob that had lynched a middle-aged man at the main entrance of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital. It is alleged that the man had confessed to murdering a businesswoman Saturday night and ran into the hospital to escape the wrath of the mob. The mob then made its way to Kibuye Market, where a second suspect was lynched on allegations of being part of a gang that has been raining terror in the recent past. And police officers at Kiogoro police station in Nyeri are pursuing a pastor who is accused of defiling a 10-year-old girl in Riangombenene village. According to Terasa Moraz police report, Duke Moranga, a pastor at Miabunda PAG Church, defiled her daughter early Sunday morning as she went to deliver breakfast. Mora told the police that she had sent her daughter to deliver breakfast, but she later revealed that the pastor had ushered her into his home within the church compound, where he defiled her. When the minor returned home, she reported the incident to her mother, who then filed a report at the nearby Kiogoro police station. Now, a Kenyan lawyer sustained serious gunshot injuries after he was attacked by armed assailants on the Isiolo-Modogashe road, according to a police report detailing the attack. Anthony Gathitu Kabathi, a lawyer with the Kabuthi and Company Advocates law firm, was driving back to Nairobi from a client meeting in Garissa when he was attacked near Lagalogo, about 5 kilometers from a GSU camp. GSU officers responded to a distress call from the public, who reported that the lawyer sustained severe gunshot wounds to his chest, left hand, thumb and left side abdomen during the ambush. According to the police report, the officers arrived at the scene in a mine-resistant ambush protected vehicle, searched the area and administered immediate first aid to the lawyer before transporting him to Isiolo Galaxy Hospital, where he is said to be in a stable condition. Now, the government has announced significant progress in the transition of Form 1 admission to secondary schools with an impressive 91% basic education, Principal Secretary Bailey Kipsang said. This represents an impressive number of the learners who sat for last year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education successfully enrolling in their respective secondary schools. The PS assured that the Ministry of Education is committed to ensuring that all the 131,854 students who are yet to join secondary schools are admitted promptly. While some learners may have chosen to pursue technical courses in local vocational training institutes, a notable number of parents have cited financial constraints as the primary obstacle preventing them from sending their children to school. And a woman has sustained serious injuries and 2 motorcycles destroyed after a lorry that was transporting building materials rammed into stalls at PI Trading Center along the Mwea-Embu Highway. Eyewitnesses recounted that the lorry was driving from Mwea to Embu when it hit a pothole, bursting one of its tires. The driver lost control of the lorry and veered off the road, hitting the woman and destroying the motorcycles. According to Jane Wangeshi, the lorry was on a high speed and the woman, who was standing by the roadside was not able to escape and was knocked down. She said that boda riders were able to jump off, leaving the motorcycles which were crushed by the lorry. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, a few minutes after 8 o'clock, and it's still a beehive of activity in the city this morning. Coming off Thika Superhighway, the Eastern Bypass, then going towards Outer Ring, very, very busy. We have holdups all along these lanes. It's also busy on Jogo Road, right around Makadara at the train station, and the Thika Superhighway. Okay, if you don't need to be here, do not. Outbound traffic on the Thika Superhighway, not bad. Inbound traffic, a totally different story. Kiambu Road is busy. We're looking at now Wangari Maathai, traffic all the way through and through to the city. It's also very busy on Limuru Road this morning and parts of Wayaki Way. Monday morning, crazy. Let us know where you might be at. That's a good route for folks to use. And how about we send everybody over there? Let's talk Spice FM. KE on X.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo. You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's the land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, hawa watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
Coming
is
up
the
8
Situation
minutes after
Room.
8. Good morning. Welcome to the third hour of the Situation Room. The live stream is now up on YouTube and Facebook. Everybody who's following us on YouTube and Facebook on the live stream, karibuni sana. We apologize for the earlier technical hitch, but now it's all smooth sailing, ready to go. Also live on KTN Home and Spice FM across the country. Karibu sana City.
Yes, please.
We'll be talking about Keringet in the water. So
Yes,
you said
we
Keringet
have.
is a spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Keringet, the water bottling company, has been doing a lot of work in terms of just making sure that they are giving you the right water. Water is not just water. Like Arnold reminded us, water has a lot of stories, right?
Yes.
And water, when you talk about mineral water, it's not just that, minerals. It's the minerals that are essential.
Let me tell you, most people don't even understand or know this. Water has iron, water has zinc, water has potassium, water has fluoride, water has calcium, water has sodium, water has magnesium. Now let me just focus on magnesium. Magnesium helps you reduce the risk of cardiovascular diseases.
Right.
Now, that is, it may not seem important, but when you consider that 60 to 70% of your body is actually water, and that every part of your body actually needs water to function properly, now imagine when it's infused with the minerals that your body needs. Now, can anything get better than that?
Nope.
So when they say water is life, it's literal actually.
Indeed.
And carrying it is water, mineral water. So it is life.
Coming all the way from the ground up and bottled at source, carrying it, they say, own your richness, because of the richness that comes from our natural ground, our natural earth. And this is what is bottled at source, carrying it. Our next conversation is going to be about the march against femicide that took place over the weekend. And then the conversation continues in what happens thereafter, what led to this, what's happening in the country. We are joined by two ladies. Edita Ochieng is a feminist activist and a member of the Africans Rising. And Ruth Ambogo is a lawyer and governance and policy expert. Good morning, Edita and Ruth.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seats of the Situation Room.
Asante.
We call this the Kenya's biggest conversation. Karibuni sana. We have a lot to talk about in terms of what's been happening in the country, what happened over the weekend, and what happens going forward. But to welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb. Every week, CT goes across Africa, settles in one country, picks up proverbs, and then he brings us one proverb a day from that country. This week, courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, CT is in Zimbabwe.
Yes, I am. Africa has 54 countries. EcoBank is in 33 of these 54 countries and has affiliate offices in France, believe it or not, China, Dubai, UK. Now, an African bank has gone international, and it is. Now, the proverb from Zimbabwe. I will read the proverb, and then, ladies, I will ask you what you think it means. Very simple. Okay? A grilled locust is better than no soup. I am looking at you directly.
Edita starts.
I'm not good with proverbs. Please, Ruth, start.
Now there is another proverb. What is the proverb? I am not good with proverbs.
Are you suggesting that I am very old enough to understand proverbs?
You don't need to be old. The beauty of asking your opinion is we just want your opinion. That's it.
You said a grilled locust
is better than no soup.
A grilled locust is better than no soup.
Just your understanding of it.
I think traditionally we prefer meals with soup. We prefer the good things of life. So I think what the proverb means is that sometimes accept what you get as opposed to what you hoped you would have. I think that's what it means in my perspective.
That's very good. What do you think?
I was just reflecting, but I know I'm problematic. When you talked about a grilled locust, it's better than no soup, right?
No soup, yes.
Yeah. And already I'm looking at these locusts like it is caged somewhere, and anyone can take advantage of it. That is what I'm thinking. That is what is in my mind. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you don't like the idea of grilling that locust at all. From the very beginning.
We were wrong the moment we started grilling the locust. The locust should be free to fly away to will, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are you grilling the locust?
Why are you grilling the locust?
Edita, now let's start with understanding your organization. You're a member of Africans Rising. What's that?
First of all, let me introduce myself to the people of Kenya. My name is Edita. I'm a feminist activist, and all the time I say I'm a feminist witch from Kibra University, a school of experience with paperless degree.
Witch, like with the long pointy hat? That witch?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I'm a member of African Rising. We work in 54 countries in Africa, and for us, our matters is on human rights, peace, dignity, and justice. Yeah.
Edita, you've been here before.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we want to now hear more of your views on this particular matter. And thank you for coming again.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Karibu sana. We'll talk about what happened on Saturday. Ruth.
Yes.
Governance and policy expert. We get very many of those here.
Yes.
We never quite understand what it means. What's your interpretation of what you say you are?
Well, being a governance and policy expert basically means that you have interacted with government policies, either from an analytical point of view, where on a weekly basis you're analyzing what government is doing, you are providing your opinion on the same well thought out opinion. So I think I am amongst the very first young people who started using that title, because I started being on media, analyzing politics and governance issues at a very young age, probably some 8 or 9 years ago when I was still very young. And as a result of that, I have gained perspective into what government does, how the same affects society, and how, and when I'm analyzing the same, I tend to provide the perspective, I tend to come in with the perspective of how should we do things differently, or how should government do things differently. I sometimes when you use that title, people ask you, so what's the effect of your work? I mean, is it just a title you're using to put up a face? I mean, is it just a title you're putting to your face when you're on media? Or is there any impact to your work on media and even out of the media spaces within the governance space?
Yep.
So I think for me, I have seen in the past some of my work on media, some of my commentaries on media actually leading to real change on the issues that we have spoken about while on air. I remember there's a time, an example I like to give is that there's a time the government was considering, way back I think in 2018 or between 2017 and 2018, the Uhuru Kenyatta's administration was considering increasing the amount of money Kenyans were going to pay on NHIF, and reducing the services that Kenyans would get out of NHIF. So we were on air that day, and it appears that no other media house captured that conversation. So we were the only ones having that conversation on media, on one particular media station that tends to have a huge following. So we really spoke about it, and I remember I really came out very passionately about how the same will affect the common and ordinary mwananchi. And the station received phone calls even from government entities, and then the very next day, in fact it didn't even take the next day, the very same day, a directive was issued that totally reversed, completely reversed the decision that government was going to make. So for me, that really showed me the impact of my work as somebody who is analyzing government policy, as somebody who is providing direction, as somebody who is looking for change in terms of the commentaries and opinion that I give on media regarding government policies. And then also, outside the space of media, I run an organization called Center for Advocacy and Awareness on the Rights of Youth in Africa, where we have provided direction on so many issues. For example, when the budget is read, we provide our opinion on the same as young people. When issues come up, we provide our opinion on the same. We have done press conferences before, which I want to believe have informed some of the government government decisions moving forward. So when somebody says, or I don't know about the rest, because maybe the rest copied the title from some of us who started it, but I mean, for me, I have seen the impact of the work that I do as a government, as a governance and policy expert.
All right. Now let's talk about what happened over the weekend. So we saw many people pour out to the streets, and it was for one specific reason. It was a march against femicide. Who were the organizers of this, if you know, and what was the reason behind it?
Should I start?
Start with you.
Well,
then we'll come to editor.
First of all, I'd like to say that I did not attend the march. I was away in the village trying to activate my political ambitions for 2027 too early. As Sakaja says, mapema ndio best. I was back in the village in Vihiga County attending a funeral here and there and church services and just doing one or two development projects back at home. But I had intended to attend the march. So how I would say that I know the organizers of the march is that sometime last week, I was approached, actually last week on the other Sunday, I was approached by a lady who is very active in the feminist space, and she asked me to host an online webinar conversation about the femicide cases that are ongoing. And I happened to get to know who the organizers of this march were, and they were basically organizations, feminist and feministic in nature kind of organizations that came together organizations that champion the rights of women that came together to say enough is enough, that in their opinion this had escalated and there needed to be something that needed to be done. So the organizations were quite a lot. I saw feminists in Kenya. Some of them I could only get their abbreviations because as I was hosting the webinar I would be told, okay, so this organization is in charge. I knew of Usikimie being part of it. I knew of Young Women, I think Leadership Institute being part of it. From a government perspective, when I was now observing the march as it was taking place, I could see that NGAF was involved. I could see that women leaders were involved. So, and also the creative societies, the creative space, for once I would say came out in support of this conversation. In the past, the creative space tends to shy away from such conversations because the creative people are always protecting their brands. So I could see they came out in large numbers, and not only did the march happen in Nairobi, but the march took place in various parts of the country. Some of the parts of the country started their marches, I think, on Friday. Like I saw Nyeri started on Friday, did theirs on Friday, but in Nairobi the same happened on Saturday. So it was a culmination of very many organizations that came together and said enough is enough.
Editor, why?
As we know, personally, I'm really angry with whatever is happening. I love to share my feelings all the time. And it's really sad. And I think everyone knows the reason why we came to the streets and used one voice. And our voice was to end femicide. And this is something that didn't start on Saturday. We started like 6 years ago when most of the women were killed, but what agitated us was the killing of Sharon in Homa Bay, and how people talked about Sharon in a very negative way, and as we were looking at ourselves as women and so vulnerable. So when we were on the street, when we were saying justice for Sharon, we were only 9 people on the streets fighting for justice for Sharon. Later, we went to the street again on 9th March 2019 with Total Shutdown KE, with Feminists in Kenya and GAF. We came together and we were around 500 women talking about femicide and why we were walking. And then later the government came together, they organized a prayer meeting, which was problematic again because everyone was saying like, young girls, you're misbehaving, you love money, and it was just blaming the victim all the time, and nobody talked to the perpetrators. And that was it was a very high level meeting for the government. We were there and we were really angry because they took away our efforts on the streets every single day fighting against femicide in this country, and they didn't give us opportunity even to talk about real issues on the ground, and we were really angry. So on Saturday, when again it happened, now the Scarlet issue, we were mad because as we work with sex workers, we work with different women. As women, a woman is a woman. Like, we are not biased when it comes to women. And we gathered ourselves together and we said, no, we need to do something. And the first thing that we are doing is pushing back. And pushing back because also we follow what Constitution says all the time. And for us, it was something peaceful, and it was a march. So when we came together, we built a community among ourselves, and we used WhatsApp group actually to mobilize. It was not easy, and everyone participated, and we were like, we need to do this thing around the country, and everyone coordinated themselves in different counties, and that is what happened on Saturday. And I loved the face of this march because it was so organic. We started from the grassroots level, grassroots women that are not funded. I'm telling you the truth. We are not funded by anyone. We are problematic, I told you that. So many donors don't like our politics. So all the time we'll work organically. We work passionately to end violence against women. And yes, some people will fund us. Some people who are like, this politics is a good politics because we are not a bit radical. I'll say we are radical on matters of women. So Coalition of Grassroots Human Rights Defenders, Feminists in Kenya, Yauli, Usikimie, Feminist Center in Kibra, and Wild Feminists, jointly we came together and said, sisi hatuwezi endelea hivi bana, lazima to stop it, and we are going in the streets and we are mobilizing. Manze, we mobilized for the last 2 weeks. I was in Kibra every single day speaking hata unasikia sauti one-on-one to women, telling them the reason why we need to attend the march. Because when you look at the narrative and the victim blaming everywhere, especially at the grassroots level, whereby narrative goes like shwa, everyone was like, it is sex worker women that are being killed. And now I was asking women about the young girl who was killed in Kisumu, was shot by the police. Young women and women who have been killed by their spouses in Kibra, and they could relate, and they were like, no, we are attending the march. Because the only thing I was telling these women, we are next. Personally, in Kibera, a gang group of more than 150 men sat down and they said, I'm supposed to be chased from the community. And it was not easy. And it brought a lot of insecurity from at individual level, and even it extended to my family and the people that I work with.
Why? What are they saying?
They say I spread immorality in the community.
How?
Because I defend family, LBQ, people, and sex workers. Another thing they say is I'm a homebreaker. This one is said internationally because I'm against gender-based violence. And any woman that I've talked to, and they were kept hostage in a violent relationship, they will leave that relationship because they will be like, I'm liberated, I'm leaving this relationship. And mostly men and communities don't take it positively.
Okay.
And that is the reason why constantly we want to push this government to ensure that femicide is a national issue. Yeah.
So one message that came out very clearly, and it was, interesting to see that there was a coming together of several organizations, communities, individuals, but the message was, stop killing us, right? Stop killing us. And in each of these incidents that you point to, somebody has died. A woman has died. And in a lot of that, we can point to, there were relational issues, there were intimacy issues in a relationship with somebody else, right? So there are very many layers to all of this. Who was this message targeted at? Stop killing us. Who are we speaking to when we say stop killing us?
We were speaking to first ourselves and then to the community. But again, we were direct to the men, Kenyan men, because we realized out of more than 546 women that have been killed, most of them were killed by their intimate partners. And all of them were men. All of them were men. Not like those who are in homosexual relationship, that there was women. So we realized we need to speak out. Personally, I speak to my partner all the time. Please, when I'm going to sleep in the night, I remind him, don't kill me. Women are being killed in this country. And I do that intentionally for him now, even to make him uncomfortable, so that at least he can speak out and speak to the fellow men. And when we are speaking directly to the men, but again, we were reminding Kenyan men, because right now, looking at everything that happened and how it has really shifted, we realized West African men, especially from Nigeria and Ghana, are killing Kenyan women, and men in Kenya are silent. They're using women's bodies for ritual. And women are already vulnerable. You get? So again, was somebody else that we are speaking to was the government. We need to hold the government accountable. We are citizens of this country. And if I'm secure, if I'm living in a place that I'm not safe as a citizen of this country, how will I participate in our development activities? What about the girls that are coming? Human trafficking is all over. The government knows and they're silent. Especially right now, I'm really mad with the executive and even judiciary. All these people are silent watching women being killed in this country. Especially like women like me, who are everywhere at the grassroots level. And the policies doesn't favor us all the time when it comes to security, matters of security of this country. So we are speaking to ourselves, we are speaking to international communities, we are speaking to the government, and we want to make the government accountable because women's lives matters.
Editor, is this a men versus women thing?
No, it is not a men versus women thing, because I know also women who are misogynists. And 3 months ago in Kibra, a young girl stabbed a woman.
A man?
A woman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why?
She's already in Langata prison. Walikorofishana ni majirani. Unajua venye tunaishi Kibira. Tuko congested. So this woman allegedly alimtukana na status zake za HIV. And she was already mad. She was mad. And initially, she was not recovered venye alijua status yake ya HIV. Now this woman alimtukana, akasikia vibaya, akamdunga kisu. It tells you also, we have women wenye wanaua wanawake wenzake. So it is not...
Is it a gender issue? Is it a human issue?
This is now, specifically on femicide, this is a gender issue.
I think... well, I think that the conversation is a gender issue. And when we speak about gender, I think, especially when you talk about gender to men, they take it as if gender is women's issues, forgetting that gender is men and women. So at the moment, the conversation is about who is actually killing these women. You know, I was in a WhatsApp conversation group yesterday till very late in the night, while on my way to Nairobi. Very late in the night, the conversation was about the men in the group saying women need to stop immorality, without really telling us about what the men who are killing these women should do. And I remember I tasked somebody, and one of the persons who was in this conversation asked me, so what is your definition? So what is the root cause of all these problems? And asked me, what is my definition of femicide? And I told him the root cause of all this problem, the problem we are facing today, is the availability of men who are ready to kill women at the slightest provocation. Because if we truly did not have men killing women, we would not be speaking about femicide. So the real issue is that there are men killing women for whichever reasons that we can talk about later, but there are men killing women at the moment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is it men killing women because they are women?
Yeah.
Yes. It is men killing women because they are women.
Specifically targeting a woman to kill a woman because of her gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what we are dealing with now?
Yes.
That is what we are dealing with now, and a cocktail of
please.
other issues. And a cocktail of other issues. When I say men killing women because they are women, is because what the point we are trying to put across is, look at how our society thinks about women, how society views women, or rather how some members of the society, and men for that matter, tend to view women as the weaker gender. And therefore, you know, it gives them a through pass to do whatever it is they wish to do to these women. And I keep saying that femicide is not just a one-time, it is not a one-time thing where somebody wakes up and says, I want to kill this woman. It's a chain of reactions or a chain of events that eventually leads up to this man killing this woman. It begins with, we are in a relationship. First of all, most of the femicide cases that take place in this country are intimate partner kind of cases, where it is not just a random man who woke up and decided to kill a woman. It is a man who has been in a relationship sort of setup with this woman, whether be it a marriage setup, or be it a relationship boyfriend-girlfriend setup, or be it even a sexual kind of relationship where, you know, it's just a beneficial kind of relationship, and then something happens, and along the way, this woman gets killed. But when you do your investigations, you find that there has been a very deliberate or very weird kind of engagement between these two people that leads up to this femicide. For the women in marital relationships, you find that these are women who, for a long period of time, have persisted or gone through violence, keeping quiet about it, or even trying to resolve the same but not finding a conclusive solution to the same, such as walking away. And then eventually, they get killed, you know, when a man now gets to a point where they are either so emotionally disturbed or so pushed to the wall, and they end up killing the woman. In a relationship, again, the same set of environment or circumstances tend to present themselves. You are in a relationship where there is some level of toxicity that you keep avoiding, where there is some level of leo umechapwa kidogo, you've been slapped a bit, and you still stay there. And for young women, mostly, some of them tend to stay in these relationships because of the money factor and power imbalance, where you're saying, my livelihood depends on this relationship. So if I'm in this relationship, no matter what happens to me, I will persist. For example, the case that she has given of young women who have been killed by the West African men in Kenya. Most of these relationships...
Please, let's just pause there for a second.
Yes.
Is it conclusive? Is it certain that these men come from West Africa?
No, I said an example. I was giving an example of the nature of relationships that take place between West African men and young Kenyan women.
Yeah. Which ones
the reality of...
What City is asking,
yes,
and you're a lawyer,
yes,
is it conclusive?
It isn't conclusive.
Okay.
But the examples of what happens in these relationships, normally, most of the times, it is that you find these West African men being providers in the relationship. And the young girls who are dating or engaging with them are young girls who, sorry to say, most of the times also tend to be in a situation where they are not so economically empowered. So when they get into this, we are speaking about realities now.
Okay.
When they get into these relationships, how many times do you hear, we are just saying now, the example of the West African men. There's also the Kenyan men mentality, which also tends to be the same. Where if a man is a provider and a woman is in a vulnerable situation economically, they do not pay attention to what happens in this relationship. Whether they are beaten, whether they are slapped, whether they are violated, they will stay there because they feel like they are vulnerable.
So it's a question of the imbalance in power.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that imbalance in power would lead to violence.
And
that violence could become fatal violence.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then
Let's take a break. We'll continue shortly. 25 minutes to 9. We are talking about femicide in the country. There was a march over the weekend and people were saying we must march against femicide. What's happening? Are there instances of femicide? What's causing this? And what should happen beyond this? Edita Ochieng is a feminist activist and a member of Africans Rising, and Ruth Ambogo is a lawyer and governance and policy expert. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Across Africa, a new era has begun, shifting our focus to a new horizon, connecting us with one purpose: to create and share opportunities to grow. Today, we are making a brighter tomorrow, built by our dreams and our energy. Across our continent, across the world, we are creating a better way to a better future. A Pan-African future. Together. EcoBank. A better way, a better Africa.
When you are born from African soil, you are born rich in who you are, with a natural richness from Mother Nature herself, just like our still mineral water, which is naturally filtered through Kenyan lands and made rich by a perfect blend of nature's minerals, giving you premium still mineral water made by the same African soil that made you. Keringet, own your richness. Keringet, a product of the Coca-Cola Company.
Oh, finally! It's my Standard Courier delivery.
At Standard Courier, we know that your time is valuable. That's why we guarantee swift and efficient deliveries to your doorstep every time. Give us a call on 0793 599 684 or schedule your next delivery by visiting our website www.standardmedia.co.ke/courier. Trust Standard Courier service for all your courier.
This morning we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16. 14 will be the low in a sunny Nakuru, going to highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 26 in a sunny Nyeri at 17. It's sunny at 14 in Eldoret with highs of 25, and looking into a sunny Mombasa at 28, we'll see highs of 33. We'll also see highs of 32 in a mostly sunny Malindi, currently at 29. Kisumu sunny at 23, we'll see highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 30 in a sunny Kakamega at 22. Mostly cloudy conditions at 21 in Kampala with highs of 29, and Dar es Salaam will go to highs of 32, where it's mostly cloudy at 27. It's sunny at 20 in Johannesburg with highs of 26, while at 29 Mogadishu is mostly sunny and we'll see highs of 32. Monday we'll see highs of 25 in a sunny Addis Ababa at 15. It's hazy in Lagos at 23 with highs of 33, and Kinshasa will see highs of 32, where it's mostly cloudy at 25.
Spice up your life.
Busy Monday morning after the weekend, and we're looking at heavy traffic still on the Thika Superhighway. Coming in towards the city, it's heavy then coming off Moranga Road, going towards Ngara, and then out towards the Globe Cinema overpass. That's very busy as you try to get into the CBD. Limuru Road, with all the construction going on here, coming past Gigiri, very busy as well. In and outbound traffic doing the thing there. You might want to think about going the long way via the other routes coming in from Karura. Okay, so we're also looking at traffic on Gong Road, a little bit of that spilling over into the city. Then Langata Road not looking too bad right about now. So, pick your poison this morning. You won't end up in jam for too long. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
With Editor Ocheng and Ruth Ambogo, femicide in Kenya. I want to go back to the question that Ndu asked. So the march on Saturday, there was a message. Who was the intended recipient of that message?
All of us. I said that before. But again, we are also directing it to the government, the state, specifically executive, and all the arms of the government. Kenya, the way we are taxpayers, all of us, as Kenyan, and we know that. And we are thinking of making the government accountable, because the government, around 2022, if I'm not wrong, Uhuru Kenyatta was in Paris, and he made some of the commitments of protecting women during, what was the name of that meeting?
I'm not sure, but I know the Security Council resolution.
Yeah, also that, which Kenya was hosting last year. And he talked about he's going to ensure that gender-based violence will end
in GBV by 2023?
2026.
Yeah.
But we are looking at it right now, and it's really high, and it has really escalated, and women are being killed in this country. So we want to communicate to all of us at individual level, but we want the state to do something, and that's why we have our own demands. For example, the first demand we are telling the government is to ensure that they are calling this femicide out to be a national security issue. But our president is still silent up to date, and it makes us angry every single day. Because the day when we were marching on Saturday, we lost 2 women. One was 60 years, and another one was a young woman at around 20 to 24 years. So it tells you how these cases are really rampant, and we need to constantly speak about femicide in this country.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally, I felt like the messaging needed to be a bit more tailored to the right agencies. Because I feel like there's a level of conversation where you can say, well, if we are saying stop killing us, at what platforms can we have the conversation of stop killing us if the message is directed to the perpetrators of these deaths? I feel like the more you keep saying stop killing us, I'm not trying to water down the march that took place, because I, as somebody who understands political movements, as somebody who understands how agitation in the past, demonstrations in the past have actually led to fruits and have led to real change in the past. Historically, ever since demonstrations began, we've seen the value of demonstrations in bringing about societal change. I am not here to water down the efforts of the women who marched on Saturday. But I'm saying that sometimes we must be conscious of what platforms do we have these conversations and what messaging do we pass across in these platforms. Because when you're trying to tell a perpetrator, stop killing us, or future perpetrators, potential perpetrators, stop killing us at a match, you sort of give them an avenue for them to also come up with their excuses, to shout louder their excuses. Because in the WhatsApp forum where we were yesterday, it seemed to be men versus women. Women saying, stop killing us. Men saying, stop being immoral. And it became, I loved the conversation at that platform because we could actually deconstruct each other's thoughts. Because when a man would say, stop being immoral, I'd come in and say, who determines what immorality is to begin with?
Okay.
So is immorality reduced to engaging in sexual activities beyond, let's say, marriage, if that is what they define it as? Or, money being involved in the same sexual context as we speak? And if that is immorality according to the men, where does that leave other forms of vices that naturally qualify as immorality? I would ask the question, for instance, to me, lying is immorality. So I asked the man who was saying, let the women stop immorality. I asked him, so if you lie to me, should I kill you? And I feel like in such conversation, in such setups, it is easy to have the conversation of stop killing us, because we can then say, you will tell me, for instance, that the women need to stop being hungry for money and be patient in life, and work hard for what they want. And I'd ask you, so what about the Ben 10s of the society? The ones who are also pretty much under the same circumstances of wanting money too quick, should they be killed? And then also, I'd also ask you the question such as, if you say these women deserve to die and they will continue dying for as long as they're hungry for money, and the same, the immorality question again, I also posed the question that should that, and who gave men the authority, or the killers the authority to kill these people they so purport to be immoral?
Let me assist you here.
Yes.
Go back into history. Most Kenyans purport to be Christians, so let's use a Christian analogy. John 8, the book of John 3-11. The teachers of the law brought a woman, and they said, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery.
Yes.
Okay? Knelt down, wrote on the sand, and said, okay, he who does not have any sin, let that person be the first.
You throw a stone.
And people melted away, and the conversation went on, and said, is there anyone here who's accusing? He says, no one. And he says, even I don't accuse you. They were quoting the Torah. Their religious book authorized them to kill a woman caught in adultery. It does not mention what you do to the man who was with this woman. It doesn't mention. So this bias against women goes back a long time ago. It didn't start yesterday.
Yes.
It's been accepted societally that women should be treated unfairly. If women had been treated fairly, affirmative action, feminism would have reared its head. It's the realization that no, we're being given the short end of the stick here. Okay, and yet our contribution is as real as everybody else's. Now, how do you get people to actually look at this thing and understand that because someone wants money, because someone is sex work, is that a reason for someone to be killed?
And that's the conversation that we should be having in platforms that, sorry to say, editor, that are not very, because a march is sort of like a very loud and very aggressive environment. It's a very loud and very aggressive environment where you give the perpetrator a chance to also come back to you in a very loud and very aggressive manner. Remember, Boniface Mwangi posted a clip the other day of a conversation at Jivanji where the men were saying, we will continue killing you. So women are saying, stop killing us. The men are saying, we will continue killing you. So for me, I felt that this platform that the feminists in Kenya and all the other women of goodwill had should have been used to pass probably a message to a different target audience, which to me, in my view, should be the government and government entities and our leaders who stand at a position of making real change, coming up with real policies, making real resolutions that would protect the citizens.
But you've achieved it. If it wasn't loud,
yes,
why would we be having this conversation?
And again, for me, I don't think that the approach we took was not the best. At that point, as a human being, when you are reacting, you react differently. And remember, everything started organically. And we said, for example, if a woman is killed in Kibra, where do you go and report? Most of the time, they'll just keep quiet. Even the relative, they will go bury that woman and they keep quiet. But at least some of us who are a bit informed, we know where to go. But most of the women, even in the village, if somebody is killed closer to them, they go, so many cases goes unreported. And for me, that was alarming. That was what we were thinking, and that is what we did. So I want to agree with Ruth when she's saying conversation needs to take different shifts at different level. At our level, that was what we could do. Because personally, I've never seen our member of parliament speaking against this thing. So where do I meet him?
If you don't speak loud, you can't be heard.
Yeah. That is true.
Let's look at maybe some things here. And, the thing about this is that femicide, any kind of death, weighs heavily on the emotion. We cannot run away from that.
That is true. Yes.
When we look at violence of any nature, it doesn't matter. It weighs heavily on the emotion. So there is a temptation to sensationalize it and not look for the solution.
That is true.
Okay? Now, let's look at something as horrible as rape. And let's look at communities whereby they made this intimate power tool public. Okay? One of the ways in which rape, for example, gains its strength or gains its strength.
It's momentum.
This momentum is because you overpower another individual in a private setting.
Yes.
And you hold that information, you retain power over
hidden.
that person. It's
Yes.
hidden. Yeah. Now, one of the ways they were able to deconstruct it in certain communities was made it public.
Yes.
Let's take Johannesburg for an example. Women were raped, 10, 15 cases of rape an hour.
Not daily.
An hour in Johannesburg. There was a part of the city that you could not walk in. Daylight, nighttime, didn't matter. Somebody would drag you into an alley and that was it. But what did they do? They made it public, open, and said, we know this is going on here, just like you're saying. People in government came out and said, look, we know this is happening. Shun this thing publicly. And that's why I asked the question, to whom are we making this message known? Because if we talk about it on a Saturday afternoon and we have a march, look, the noise is absolutely necessary. But I think one of the questions that we're asking today is, then what happens
after the
noise?
That
is exactly what I was addressing.
Yes. What happens next?
Yes.
Because we still have aggressors who are saying, you can
so
be.
What?
So what? You had a march.
Go to the
so
streets
what?
10 days.
If you mess up with me,
I will kill you.
Yes. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Now, we must also realize that it is not an immediate action. You don't have a conversation with somebody today and in the evening at 4 o'clock they kill you. No, they don't kill you today. It's built up, it's momentum, it gathers steam over time.
Yeah.
So what is it that must be done so that as this thing is gathering steam, it is in the mind of the individual that, okay, you know what? I cannot kill this person and get away with it.
Exactly. That's what I was talking about when I was saying that the platform was good, but the message needed to be to different target audiences. There should have been a message. There should have been the Stop Killing Us message, which was properly put out there. But then beyond, over and above Stop Killing Us, there should have been a stronger message as well, a loud message to the government. Yeah? For instance, there should have been a call to the Cabinet Secretary, Kithure Kindiki, that when 10 people are killed at the border of Kisumu and Kericho, within 2 days, because it is a political matter, it becomes a national crisis, and Kithure Kindiki speaks about it. During this march, there should have been an even louder message to Kithure Kindiki that if you cannot guarantee the safety of women in this country, then we don't need you to continue sitting holding that position. At that particular march, there should have been an even grander message to women leaders who did not attend that march. The question of where are you? In this conversation, where are you? There should have been an even louder message to these legislators, not just women, but even the male legislators, that we are giving you an ultimatum. of, let's say, 2 months or 3 months to come up with legislation, to reform legislation to ensure that femicide is no longer being categorized under the same category that we categorize murder, crimes of passion. Can we have a separate law that criminalizes femicide and places a totally different sentence, for instance, to it, and consequences for the people who are found culpable for the same?
Okay.
Under the same breath, there should have been a conversation about moving forward as women, as this feminist movement, as the women who are disgusted by this. How do we bring on board men and have these conversations extended beyond the loud and public setting?
That's a good point. Now let's ask a question, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but we cannot ignore it because it's in these conversations, right?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay? There are men and women, not just men, who are on the other side of the spectrum today. And look, let me set a caveat here, that there is no justification, doesn't matter what it is, for taking the life of another human being. Okay?
Yes.
But there are those on the other side of the spectrum who say, you know what? You can't irritate me to this point whereby you're asking for money, you dress the way you like, you show up at places, and then I find that you're also in another commitment, relationship, whatever, with somebody else. But you're taking these things from me, and sometimes you don't even show up. I think there's even a slang for it today, right?
Kukula fair.
Exactly. These are sentiments coming from blood-thumping human beings.
Yeah.
They're not animals. They feel something, they feel it, and they feel that it is unfair. Again, no justification for taking another life. But how, editor, do we deal with that sentiment?
Okay. First of all, I want to respond to Ruth, because what you are saying about what we could have done, we have 17 demands to the government specifically on what they need to do. But again, having more than 10,000 people on the street that we were not expecting, it was not easy to manage. Everything that was planned organically without enough funds. Hata tukukuwa na PA, hata kuongea ilikuwa ngumu. You can even listen to my voice. I'm really struggling to speak today. It was not easy at all. There is nobody. This was the first time when Kenyan women and young people came together, and men, against femicide, a march that consists more than 10,000 people. So it was not easy, and we have our demands today. And some of my colleagues are going to the Ministry of Gender. They're going to meet Kithure and different cabinets today, this Monday. Okay. So a lot is happening behind the scene. But what we know, we are going to move, we are going to have constant discussions about femicide at community level. Mimi tu ni mdemu wa community. Unaona? Sauti yangu hata nikipaza aje, yezi jipaze fikie president. But I know somebody who can do it on behalf of us. For example, Pasaris came in the march, and you saw how everyone was like, get out of here. And it was difficult for her even to control the crowd. And everyone was expecting, editor, you can control this crowd. I was like, these people can beat me up. I'm not doing it either. So I left it there. And I was just, the whole day I was just observing, because I saw the anger on the face of Kenyans. So what you are saying, I'm looking at how systems have been used against women. And for the longest time, an African woman has been enslaved from a religious point of view, whether it's Christianity or Islamic. And women have normalized certain things. For example, you talked about how we dress as women. Personally, I dress, my choices must be respected to anyone who is around me and anyone outside there. So sometimes we looking at the cultural barriers, religious barriers, and how the Muzungu came in Africa and colonized us. And our men, because, after colonization, the men were the gatekeepers, right? And when men were the gatekeepers, men inherited what Muzungu was doing to the black people. Now, an African man took everything that was against what they were being done to, and right now they're doing to an African woman. And it's difficult when you say, for example, I'm always a disruptor. Even at community level, at my family level, people don't like me. Mi napendwa na watu kidogo sana. And you will feel when you say no to anything as a woman, somebody will object, somebody will silence you. You are a woman, you are not supposed to do this. Women don't go to school in certain community, we know, just because of what they have between their legs. And gender is not about men and women. Right now, when we are conversing about this conversation, we need also to have that in mind. We have queer people who identify differently. We have intersex persons who have been killed by the same policies for the longest time. But right now, we are here and we're demanding for women's rights. Let me tell you, it's not easy.
Editor,
but again, we can liberate ourselves as women.
I want to pause you for a bit. We've got to go to the news. I'd like to ask that we continue this conversation in the next hour and get in feedback from the public. I'm seeing there's a lot of comments coming in as well from the public, and open up this discussion. What is it that we are dealing with as a society? Are we dealing with men hating women? Are we dealing with a section of a society hating another section of society? What exactly are we dealing with? It's 9 a.m. The conversation will continue after the news. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. At least 11 people, including an infant, died in a road accident in Awasi town in Kisumu County. The 3 a.m. incident involved a bus and a lorry. Nyando Sub-County Police Commandant Grace Thuo, while confirming the incident, said the bus and the lorry rammed each other in a head collision. Now, a section of Kenya Kwanza MPs have threatened to slash the judiciary's budget on grounds that they are opposing government's projects led by Mogotio MP Ruben Kiborek. They say that the judiciary is seemingly trying to prove a point to the executive, warning that the National Assembly might be forced to take action against the department. Speaking in Nyakach, Kisumu County, Kiborek added that Parliament, through the Budget and Appropriation Committee, will use its powers to handle the judiciary.
Judiciary yetu wamekuwa kwa contest ya kushindana na kupimana nguvu na parliament na executive. Tuko na bill kama ya NHIF ambayo ilikuwa Social Insurance Health Fund. Ilikuwa na nia ya kumeka UIC kuwa affordable kwa kila Mkenya. Mtu mwenye anaketi pale judiciary anaenda kwenda kupinga hiyo bill. Plan ya house, mtu mwenye ameketi kule judiciary anaenda kupinga yale bill. Sisi wanachea ya budget, nataka nikuombe, tunapotengeneza budget yenye inakuja, hii judiciary tunataka PF, tunakata budget yao yote mpaka wanakuta basikeli kama wakitembea.
Sentaboni Khalwale speared and killed his bull Binancio after it attacked and killed its handler. Khalwale explained that he had killed the bull in response to the death of a 46-year-old caretaker who had worked for him for decades. He said following the accident, the action had to be taken in line with traditions.
Hii accident imefanyika na kuna traditional way yenye mambo kama hii ikifanyika ambao tunafanya. Tutafanya hiyo, lakini tutampatia masishi yake kama Mkristo wetu Mkatoliki wa hapa Irenji Catholic Church. Na unajua bull huwa tunawalisha kitu ambayo inaitwa molasses. So ukimkaribia kama unanuka molasses, huwa anakuja kwa haraka, anafikiri anataka kumlisha. So katika hiyo kustuka, kwa sababu pengine alikuwa amelewa, nafikiri alitisha bull akijaribu kumsukuma na bull akawa na hasira. Kuna pembe moja yenye bull ilimtunga direct in the neck, hiyo ndio ilimuua. Pembe imeingia right into the neck, ikafungua big blood artery yenye imebleed na moyo akapoteza maisha.
Khalal is famous for bullfighting, which is common in Western Kenya, where he enters them into local competitions. Now, Orange Democratic Movement Party continues with its recruitment drive across the country as it continues to bolster its position ahead of the 2027 general election. Led by party leader Raila Odinga, the party has maintained that the only way the party will be strong is by ensuring that they have numbers in parliament in the coming election. The recruitment exercise will culminate with the grassroots elections.
Chama inatakana wakati mko na nafasi namna hii, watu wanaokohoa, wanatoa kila kitu. Kama wewe uko hapa na machafu kwa tunataka vijana waingie ndani ya chama. Vijana ndio nguzo ya chama. Mama nataka waingie ndani kwa chama kwa fujo. Tunataka chama chetu cha ODM kiwe na nguvu kabisa.
Saa hii tuko na wabunge 85 katika bunge kule Nairobi na Senate pamoja. Tunataka tuwe na wabunge zaidi ya 150 tukifika bunge la 2027.
Now, President William Ruto departed the country for an official visit to Rome, Italy, to participate in the Italy-Africa Summit. The summit brings together 20 African heads of state and government to discuss crucial areas of collaboration, including food security, culture, education, vocational training, energy security, economic and infrastructure development, as well as combating human trafficking and terrorism. In his capacity as the chair of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, President Ruto will deliver an address on energy security during the summit. The head of state is also scheduled to hold discussions with President Sergio Mattarella of Italy to foster bilateral cooperation. The leaders will review agreements reached during President Mattarella's state visit. This is News Time. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we're still looking at traffic this morning at a few minutes after 9 o'clock. Looking a lot better on the Thika Superhighway as you come into the city. Just at the Pangani Tunnel is where we'll see some hold up as you get towards the CBD. Also on Gong Road is very busy. We're looking at traffic coming on Raila Odinga Way as you get past the junction on towards the roundabout on Gong Road. And on Mombasa Road, as you get past Capital Centre going towards the Nyayo Stadium Junction, there's a hold up there. So, trickling into the city as we watch. We'll get out of traffic hour in a short while. Hold up. We'll see what happens then. Let's talk SpiceFM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the
7 up to 9.
Situation
We're
Room.
on to the final hour of the Situation Room, and we continue this one on femicide. March against femicide that happened on Saturday. Thousands of people turned up, and it was organized by, among others, Editor Cheng, who is a feminist activist, a member of Africans Rising. We also have in the studio Ruth Ambogo, lawyer, governance and policy expert. City, remind us where EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, is taking you this week.
EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, the huge Pan-African Bank, has taken us to Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
Yes, fully liberated now. Even though that song still reminds us that, liberation never really stops.
Right.
Okay. A grilled locust is better than no soup.
A grilled locust.
I later thought about it and I wondered, editor's explanation was a grilled, is it a grilled locust that has been caged? Is it a caged locust?
Or one that has been cooked.
Or
grilled
the
like
one that has been cooked. Nyama choma.
Editor,
right.
what was
Yes.
your interpretation? Let's first get to understand. Editor, which one did you mean? A locust in a grill or a locust that has been cooked by a grill?
By a grilling.
In a grill and waiting to be cooked.
Oh.
You see, you have to serve the locust first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. You don't grill it in flight. You've got to get it, put it in one place, put them rather, then you take them for grilling. Yes. So her point was well made.
You said nobody can be wrong with the interpretation of Proverbs.
Even if you try. See, it's your interpretation.
So,
yes.
Own your richness, courtesy of what It's carrying it. Yes. Why own your richness?
Because imagine what water that comes up from an earth that has all these natural elements in it. How rich it would be, where it's just here for you to then be able to get hold of. And that's what Keringet offers, isn't it?
Yeah.
That from this earth, all the natural vitamins and minerals that you need are present in this water. And it's bottled at source. It's bottled in all safeness. And it's presented to you in a bottle that you can drink and enjoy and be refreshed. Own it. It's here in Kenya. It's bottled at source. It's fresh. It's healthy. Own it.
Okay. There's a question that I asked you, Ruth.
Yes.
And I asked you, is this a man versus woman? In fact, I asked both of you. And I keep asking this because every time, even in your WhatsApp group, the way you said, it appears to create a sort of a divide.
Mm-hmm.
So women are saying, you men, stop killing us. And then men are saying, okay, so why are we killing you? Why are you being immoral? Why is this conversation coming down to it's a men versus women conversation? It creates this narrative, sort of like men hate women, and it continues. If you look at the comments that we're seeing on social media, it's the same. It's a kind of pushback. It's a pushback. Oh, men, you women, you men, stop killing us. Why are we getting there? What exactly are we dealing with? And I want to ask that question again directly to all of you, your opinion of it. Is this a men hating women, killing women?
Personally, I think the conversation is beyond men versus women. And why I say so is because I have personal examples of violence against women that did not necessarily involve a man in the act, that at some point actually involved women mitigating violence against fellow women. In our off-air conversations, I mentioned that in 2022 I attempted to vie. And why this is relevant is because you will see cases of women mitigating the very same violence that if men mitigate against women, we would call it hatred for women. But now the context is different. It is a woman mitigating violence against a fellow woman. I joined the race at a very young age. And when I came on board, I think there was a lot of conversation around the fact that, I couldn't make it and I was too young and inexperienced and a slay queen and all those derogatory terms that people throw at young women who seem to have it all together physically and, or well put together. So you are a slay queen, you will not make it in this political arena. But unlike what they expected, contrary to their beliefs, I actually ended up coming up with a very strong strategy that got me very popular in a very short period of time. Popular not just with the young people, but with the elderly and, the church community and all those stratospheres of the people in the society, how you divide the society into categories. With the older men, I was popular with my different strategy with them. With the younger ones, different groups of people. So as I continued building up my political career back in 2021, I remember there was a by-election that was taking place at Matungu. And one of my biggest opponents, whose names I will not mention, they ended up clinching the seat. You can find out for yourself, Vihiga County, current woman representative, seemed to be one of the people who are very uncomfortable with how far I had gone with my popularity. So I attended the Matungu by-elections to support the party that I was in at the time. And I remember when I was trying to climb the podium at one of the big rallies, the final rallies, she sent somebody to try and, first of all, the first thing they did is they sent somebody to try and, remove my clothes, uncover my clothes and have me exposed naked out there, which is a form of violence during campaigns.
It is violence.
And it was actually not a man who was sent, but a woman in her team. And she herself was trying to pull me down from the caravan as I was climbing so that I could fall down. And if you fall down from a caravan that is so high, there is no predicting what will happen to you. There were instances where I would be invited to political meetings and she would send goons, male goons, who would come. I remember one time I went to a political meeting where a chief was retiring and being promoted to a different station, a county commissioner. And I was told, you come, get to know these police officers. They will be useful to you during your campaigns. So she was not invited. And word reached out to her that Ruth has arrived at that meeting and you are not there. Send somebody to deal with her. In a matter of 10 minutes, a young man came on a boda. Next thing I know, bottles are flying, soda bottles are flying all over. I'm almost being hit with these bottles. Had I not had a team that was very quite responsive to this environment, we would be talking about a different story. This is violence, political violence, being meted upon a woman by a fellow woman. Now, the most disturbing incident that happened in my campaign, which was totally intended to destabilize me, and it actually got me out of the campaigns, was when a daughter to my PA in my campaigns was mercilessly raped by somebody who was also in my campaign but was a mole of my opponent. So you send an opponent into my campaign team, a male opponent. You send a male person into my campaign team. You give them instructions that get so close to her to an extent where she trusts you so much and she will listen to you. And when the opportunity strikes, do the most that you can do to get her out of this campaign. And so it ended up being such a crazy incident of a young girl being raped. And the girl who was raped was actually a lady who had some brain development issues, so she couldn't understand what was going on. She was actually lured to her rape. And for me, why I'm bringing up this conversation is because when this happened, and I liked the question that you asked about the example you gave of South Africa, where people spoke publicly about rape and it sort of reduced the incidences. So here we have a woman propagating all these things against a fellow woman. Things that if a man does would be considered as femicide. And this conversation again extends to the fact that, and for me, sometimes I get very uncomfortable with some of these terminologies. And that is why you will never find me saying, sorry to say, my sister, you will never find me publicly saying, I am a feminist. Because there are times when I have held views that feminists would totally disagree with and have fought me viciously on social media platforms. And I find that some of these feministic views are views that are borrowed from Western conversations and Western terminologies, that if brought back to our African context, would make it very difficult to resolve an issue that we are dealing with. For instance, when you say femicide is a killing of women because women are hated, and when you concentrate on the killing, you forget the process that leads up to the killing. I was on our way here, I was engaging my uncle because we were driving with my uncle back to Nairobi. And he brought up a case of a woman who they met at a certain joint. I think he's a mutual friend of theirs. And this lady, he was talking about how this lady would come to the joints, wherever they meet up and hang out. And she says, Ata leo nimepigwa. Leo nimepigwa. In fact, I know when I leave this meeting, when I get back home, I know I will be slapped because if I get late by like 10 minutes, nitapigwa. And my uncle was saying, she couldn't understand how this woman talks about this beating like it is such a normal thing. It's such a normal thing, you know? She talks about how her husband, when she goes to the local shop, the husband sometimes follows her just to monitor who this woman is talking to. You see, in that case, and most of the times, such cases, I usually say that by the time an intimate partner is killing you, they have slapped you 1 or 2 times. And what will lead to your death sometimes will not even be that this intimate partner was saying, today I'm going to kill you. It would be that he was just saying, today I want to slap you. I'm so angry, let me slap you. Yeah. But in the process of slapping you, they sort of push you to the wall. They come with too much force that is not normal, the normal slaps. They push you to the wall, you hit your head, internal bleeding, you are dead. Another instance would be that according to them, that the instance at which you died, they didn't come intending that they're going to kill you. So they've slapped you, you are at the top of the stairs.
It's a build-up of something.
Exactly, you're at the top of the stairs. Next thing they know, they probably did not see the stairs. They push you, you fall, and you die. And I'm not excusing that. I'm not saying that now we are justifying this man killing you. But what we are trying to say is there is a process.
So what is it? And that's why I asked the question.
Yes.
What is it that we are dealing with in society? Editor, you deal with these issues at community level on a daily basis. What are we dealing with? Are we dealing with hate? Are we dealing with impunity? Are we dealing with attitude problem? What is it?
For me, I would say we are dealing with systematic issues that we borrowed from colonial period. And looking at that how Kenya has been working every single day, even at judiciary level, the lawyers, the system that they've used that is against the black person. I'll just, in the context of Kenya. And we borrowed so much from them. How we speak, how we go to school, and we left our traditional way that were progressive to live. Yes, we had retrogressive cultures, but at the same time, we had very progressive way to live right now. And in this context, every Kenyan is really confused. When we speak about femicide, and for me, I want to speak about femicide, yes, there is so much issues that is going. Personally, I'm a survivor of sexual violence so many times, but most of the time, I talk about two of them. 6 years, defiled, 16 years, I was brutally gang raped. I didn't die, I'm here today. But it tells you how community is, whereby patriarchy would love to shatter the dreams of women. They take away our power in a very different way. And every woman, I love this conversation, and this conversation also, people who are listening, remember that we have our own individual stories as women. It is not collective. What happened to me, it might be a similar experience, but it is not exact thing that happened to another woman. We need to be careful with that. And on femicide right now, personally, as editor, if you ask me, I'll speak directly to the men, patriarchy, on their faces, and I will tell them, patriarchy.
What is this patriarchy?
Killing men. It's a community that is men-dominated. If our president today was a woman, it could be maybe something different. However much maybe we could.
So what does the male domination then do? I mean, how does patriarchy lead up to violence?
They don't care about women because they think about a woman is a woman. They subject women all the time. And they think about that women are lesser being.
Who?
Patriarchy. Remember, long time ago.
Who are you saying? Are you saying men don't care about women?
Patriarchy. I'm speaking about where a community is well men dominated. Whereby
and you've said Kenya is a patriarchy.
Kenya is.
So
that
are you saying
reality.
that the men in Kenya don't care about women?
Yes, most of men in Kenya don't care about women. Most of the men in Kenya don't care about the well-being of women. I didn't say all men in Kenya.
Can I ask a question? If we take this thing, I'm going to keep going back to the origins of this thing. How do we bring up our men, our young boys and girls? And in an African society, who brings them up?
Women, mothers.
Who instills the idea in these young men that they are different and that they are better and that there are things they cannot do because it's only women who do those things? Where do these ideas come from?
Men.
Who instills it? There's the male. Who instills it?
Like, for example, I was raised up in a patriarchal home.
Yes.
Whereby, yes, my mother was there. She gave birth.
Yes.
And my mother took care of us.
Yes.
But at a certain point, my father could utter some words to affirm my brother. You get?
Yes.
And my brother used to be so violent because of those utterances when we were young, when we were children.
Yes.
So when we grew up, when I started saying no, it was a problem, and it really brought a lot of issues between my father and my mother. And my father was saying, my mother didn't raise us well. So as much as women are taking care of the families, and
there's a male influence.
Yes, there is a male influence.
There's a male influence that you can't ignore, and the male influence comes in where?
Allow me just to cut you in.
Yes.
We are taking this conversation to exactly where it's at, where we are saying it is so and so, it is so and so. And I'm asking this question so that you look at this thing dispassionately and ask yourself the simple question. What is it that we do with the bringing up of our children? Because these things begin there.
Yes,
I agree.
How do you have a wholesale generation and individuals who think that they are entitled? How? That doing what we say is retrogressive and negative. It must emanate from somewhere. When someone is entitled, they feel they are within their rights to slap you around.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is
even in public. Why? What? It doesn't begin with them slapping you around. It begins with a sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Now I am saying this. If we look at this this concept of how we bring children up, take it back to even your fathers, take it back to their fathers. You just keep taking it. The reason why traditional African society, you had these matters were lessened is because all these people lived in one compound. Okay? So the check and balance was right there.
Your neighbor could, if your mother is not around, your neighbor could beat you up.
It didn't matter. You are the son, the people you're related to were just around you.
Yes.
They were not going to allow you to misbehave. So you knew the check and balance was there. Now, you remove that check and balance and you bring it into this. By the way, it's not unique to us. Huh? Communities around the world, do you know the efforts that many communities have gone through to remove this patriarchal leaning? All these societies in the West, when you hear feminism, why do you think it came up? They were facing problems very similar to ours.
Yes.
And they decided, no, enough is enough. Some women got liberated because of those so-called world wars where men had gone to fight.
And women were left alone.
Yes, so somebody had to do those things. So that's how they took it up. Now, an honest conversation about this. It's very difficult to divorce femicide from emotions, but we must try. Because if we do not look at how these things develop and how they grow, and how you had this cast in concrete ideas that people walk around with and live by, we can talk until we are blue in
the sun.
Well, blue is a bit difficult since it's already dark. But until we are purple in the face.
Yes.
But we won't change anything. So let me ask you the question. When you look at the norms that bring about, because it's something that people learn, how do you ensure that you curtail it at the very point where it originates?
I think, first of all, there needs to be a re-upbringing of the older men and women in the society in general. There needs to be a re-education of what parenting should look like. Our education systems probably need to go back to what they were before modernization came about. When we were in school, I'm not suggesting that I am very old, but when we were my days in school, we used to be beaten up for the mistakes that we would make, small mistakes that we would make, which sort of brought us up in a way where we lived in a society that had consequences for our actions. But remember now, education system has evolved, where you are being told that there shouldn't be punishment by the rod,
by the cane, for students who, errant young boys and girls. So they grow up in a society where, and it's not just the education system, it is also the family setup, where a parent comes and says, mtoto ni wangu. I'm the one who knows how I'm raising my kid. So if a child in the playground of an estate beats up another kid, you as a parent whose kid has been beaten up have no say or no right as to what that other child should suffer in terms of consequences. And when the other child goes back to their house, the mother probably even encourages them, saying, "Huyo mwingine ndiye alikuwa bully." There is no system of punishment for bringing up kids today. There is no system of actions and consequences. And then second, as I said, as the first point, I need to elaborate on the first point, which was retraining the older society, older generation. There is a manner in which there are issues that people go through and face. And by the older generation, I don't even mean 50s, 40s. I mean even as young as 25s, 30s, there are issues that we deal with the moment you get into your adulthood as a young man or a young woman. Some of them psychological issues. How do we re-educate the society, first of all, to look at psychological issues that men and women face as normal issues that can be resolved? How do we get to a point where, as a society, because some of these deaths, let's be very honest, as we said, are not out of a man hating a woman. They're out of a man being very frustrated, getting to a point where psychologically they have issues they're dealing with, and they have no avenue to ventilate, and therefore their only quickest avenue to ventilate is beating you up, which eventually leads to your death. So how do we come up with societal structures that make sure that anybody who has psychological issues that might push them to a point of beating up another person, psychological issues that might lead them to killing people, are actually addressed? Can we get to a point where we destigmatize mental health issues? And by mental health issues, I don't mean being so extreme as to a point where we are mentioning the different types of mental health issues. I'm not talking about bipolar. I'm not talking about schizophrenia. I'm talking about where, as a man or a woman, you're facing emotional turmoil.
You have pressure from family, you have pressure from your workplace, you have expectations that you need to have met, and therefore when you get into a relationship setup, you're throwing all this pressure at your partner.
Yeah.
Can there be a destigmatization of platforms such as Madare Mental Hospital, which actually offer counseling services, where you walk in, you pay 500 shillings, you sit with a counselor. You are not necessarily suffering from schizophrenia. You are just having a cocktail of issues that could push you to an extent where you will beat up somebody and end up killing them. Can we destigmatize mental health issues?
Time for a break.
Yes.
29 minutes after 9. Ruth Ambogo is a lawyer and a governance and policy expert, and Editor Cheng, feminist activist, member of Africans Rising. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Africa is watching. Africa is on the football stage courtesy of EcoBank. From Kenya and across 35 countries in Africa and beyond, EcoBank is connecting your financial dreams through digital integration and its robust payment platforms. Listen to the Situation Room every morning and get to understand how Africa is creating a better way, a better Africa. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. All right, so where are we at? Coming round towards the end of traffic hour this morning. Usually you see things then start to fizzle out now. It's happening on the Thika Superhighway, just a little bit left at the Pangani Tunnel, and then on Uhuru Highway through into the CBD out towards Westlands. We'll see little hold-ups there as you get to your roundabouts. Apart from that, you've done well. A little bit of drama earlier in the morning, but things seem to have opened up some. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X as we keep things moving this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
As we continue this conversation and asking ourselves, so what are we dealing with? What's the root cause of what we're dealing with in the country? You give us the example of Johannesburg, this kind of protest. India, similar thing was happening. Just rape, and the people came out and said, no, this has got to end. And when they were looking back, they asked themselves, so what is it? How can our young men just suddenly be so callous
yes,
in how they treat
and insensitive
their sisters and cousins and relatives? I mean, what is it? And they had to go back into, there's something that is broken in the societal fabric. Are we saying the same kind of thing? Are we witnessing that in our society? And what is it?
Well, look, there is something broken, and that's for sure. I don't think we can run away from it. And I think that in order to deal with it, we have to pull everything apart. Just look at a court of law. What happens? There's evidence that's gathered when a case has been brought before a judge or a magistrate. And then what happens to the two? The evidence is brought before court. All the individuals come out and they share what it is that they know or do not know. It is then pulled apart and it's pieced together to form a case. Why do people kill in the first place? Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Why do people kill? What takes them to the point whereby ending life is better than staying with the option of interacting with this human being again? Why do people because it is not easy to take another life. I don't care whether you're under the influence of what. By the time you get to the point where life has been snuffed from another individual, you have to have gone really, really far in terms of your own personal convictions or in your temporary insanity, whatever it must have been. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to look at this is, yes, we're going to have to look at it dispassionately. However difficult that must be, that we are going to have to be objective when it comes to dealing with this thing. Is it terrible? Oh my God, absolutely. Nobody should have to die for whatever reason, right? But in order to, because what we are saying is, editor, we want to stop it. What we're saying, Ruth, is that we want to stop it. But in order to stop something, we have to figure out why it started, how it started, how it's carried on, right? At the point where life is being taken, that individual, this man who has killed this woman, at the point where life is being taken, are they thinking, I am taking this life because it is a woman and I hate her. It is an uncomfortable situation, but we're going to have to ask the question.
What do you think, Lou?
I don't think that can be given to every situation.
Mm.
I think that there are very few that can happen in that manner.
Yeah.
I think that if we were going to uncover the layers and ask the question truthfully, that very few would say, yes, I'm taking this life because she's a woman and all women damned to hell, let me kill them. I think that there are very many elements that lead towards that happening, and circumstance then is what has created this place where it happens to be a woman that is being killed by the man that is doing the killing. But because there are so many other constructs in society, it then becomes a little bit easier for us to call it a certain thing because it is a woman
to blanket
being killed. And truth be told, in order for us to solve this, we must, again, like the court of law, separate
emotions.
This. We have to. Otherwise, we will never solve it.
Yeah.
We will not get to the place whereby we can make it public and we put it into the public and make anybody, doesn't matter, man or woman, so uncomfortable with taking life that they stop it. And that's where we need to get. That somebody needs to get so uncomfortable with taking life as an option to solve an issue. That's where we need to get to solve the problem.
I think we're dealing with a deeper issue. It's unfortunate, no. It's wrong that it ends up with any form of violence, any form of death. Because most of the cases, and editor, you have dealt with many of them, Ruth, you've also seen very many of them. We have had many conversations here. Most of the cases that will end up with a woman dead will happen in an intimate situation. This is somebody with whom they're involved. They're in a relationship, they're in a marriage, they're in something.
Yes.
Okay? And it will end up there. What is it that will end up there? Why is it that we don't talk about somebody killing their co-worker because she's a woman?
No, we have also such cases. People have killed women. For example,
we have many. I hear you. We have many. The greater percentage is not that.
Yeah.
The greater percentage is not where a woman was walking and then she met with a stranger and the stranger killed her. The greater percentage is not where a woman, it has to be, it is a greater percentage is this one where you know one another.
80%.
You are in a relationship with one another. What is it that would start a relationship? Is a relationship starting on a point of hate, of conflict? It's not. So why is it that this conflict is leading to violence, is leading to death? And I think it shows us something that's happening in relationships. Either the structure of our relationships or the structure, like you said, of our mental state before, into, during, after relationships. That this entire power structure that ends up playing in favor, quote unquote, of the male person and against, quote unquote, the female person. And the female person here is physically not as strong as the male person. So the male person uses the physical power to empower, to overpower the person, and the other person becomes a victim. So what is this that's happening in these relationships? Are we dealing with things that are happening in a relationship where now the whole battle becomes a power battle and a power struggle in a relationship, and this power struggle can only end up in a physical contest, and the physical contest will end up one way, and often it ends up one way. There are also very many cases where you see it ending up the other way.
I think it's a question of expectations. In every relationship setup, be it work, be it friendship, be it relationship, romantic relationship setups, and any other setup where two people are coming together to transact whatever sort of business, even business relationships. It's a question of expectations. It's a question of, I'm coming to this relationship. You know, when you get into a relationship, you don't get into a relationship with a person that you hate.
Nope.
Because if the question was hate, then we would say, these are partners who got together with one having in mind the fact that they truly hate this person and they're coming with an agenda from the onset of the relationship to kill that woman. So it's a question of, I have seen this, let's say for example, I am a man, I've seen this lady, I like her, and I genuinely believe we can have something together, be it that leads to marriage, or be it a relationship where we are trying to figure things out, or any other form of relationship that we are having. So when we get into this relationship, there are expectations that naturally rise from the fact that we have decided to engage together.
Yeah.
Some of the natural expectations from the African context are, I'm expecting that as a man, you will provide.
Mm-hmm.
And the man is expecting that as a woman, you will probably take care of me, especially if it's a marriage setup. You'll take care of me, you'll take care of the family, you will make sure everything is running okay. So in the upset of those expectations, conflict begins.
Conflict rises. Mm-hmm.
Where if, as a woman, I expected you to provide financially, and you stop providing, I begin complaining. And as a man, because you're complaining, I react. So sometimes even these murder cases that where women end up being killed, normally begin with the woman's expectations have not been met, so the woman begins by complaining first. And I'm not saying that the woman deserves to die, but I'm just now leading you up to the death process where the woman ends up dying. So the man begins to react to that complaint of, you are not providing as I expect you would. Now, if proper communication comes in where the expectations are not met, when expectations are not met, then I doubt we would have people dying in relationships. Because what would happen is, if I realize that you are not providing as I expected you to provide, we would end up having a conversation about, why are you not providing as we thought you'd provide?
Yeah.
Is it a question of the economic times have become difficult? And what can we do about it? Can I also chip in in the meantime, as we stabilize?
Are young people brought up to understand that when you have these difficulties, you have a conversation about it?
And that is it. And that's why I brought up the fact that if proper communication would reign in these conversations, in these conflict situations, we would never find ourselves getting to a point where there is death and the people are dying, people are being dismembered. It would be a question of even a slap. It would be a
it would not even pushing.
Even my head. Even forget about pushing. Even insults.
Even insults.
If we were to be trained from a young age how to communicate when there are issues, we would never get there. For instance, I'd tell you, I am not trying to promote myself in terms of my relationship prowess, but I rarely find myself in confrontations when I'm in relationships. Why? Because at my high school level, we used to be taught critical thinking and we were taught conflict resolution. At my university level, Strathmore University, some of the foundational courses you are taught are communication skills, critical thinking, conflict resolution. As a lawyer, one of the core courses I have to take before I'm a graduate of a university of law school, a law school university, is a course on conflict resolution. To even further myself as an advocate, I would have to take a course on mediation and you know. So it would be very difficult to find somebody like me in a confrontation because there has been a foundation where I have been taught proper communication skills and things like that. And I'm not even accrediting it to education so that we say that there are certain people who would be underprivileged and therefore it justifies their nini.
We have people who've studied what you've studied.
Exactly. And they still
exactly wonder whether they actually went to the same school.
Exactly. So I think also it is also over and above communication, yeah? Because I would say education institution has helped me to be the kind of person that I am in relationships today.
Yeah.
But there are mentorship platforms that have been set up out there where young men and women haven't taken advantage of the same mentorship platforms. You find that, and it's also a question of how society is structured. We've gotten to a point where we don't do community activities that would bring us together as they would in the past. Like for instance, I'm not saying that everybody should be religious, but church used to be one of those platforms where if you are in a relationship setup and things are not working according to the way they should, you meet a pastor or you meet your religious leader and you tell them, Pastor, we are having problems. Could you please help us navigate these problems?
Yeah.
So you find yourself resolving your problems in that community setup. So we don't have community. We are
there are many things that are lacking in the community.
The individualistic.
Let's bring in the elder,
yes,
who is also a behavioral scientist.
Okay.
Before the elder, I have something to say. Please. When we were speaking, I was just thinking about intergenerational conversation that are really authentic because we are different generations. But most of the time, you'll find on intergenerational conversation also, there is the same blame game. You young people, you are lazy, you are not doing ABCD. And I just want to remind us, personally, I didn't go to Strathmore, but I'm from Kibra University, whereby we are not taught all these skills.
Yes.
But I've never killed any human being.
Yes.
Like, it is difficult for me, again, to be like a problematic person confronting people. Apart from when I'm on my activism, I'm defending human rights. But one-on-one, when I'm in relationship also, it doesn't happen. So another thing I'm looking at, yes, all the time we want to paint Christianity as one of the ways, or religion as one of the ways that has worked for African. That is where we messed up, because Christianity, religion, on a religious perspective, looking at Islamic religion and Christianity, there is a place that says if anyone is not of that religion, they are supposed to be killed. One of the people who are vulnerable to be killed is a woman. What Mackenzie did, he killed most of the women. We are still talking about 546 women. And I was telling my colleagues, we have data at Mackenzie, and the government has not provided the exact data. How many women were killed on that? Every day we are losing women in churches. Every day we are losing women in mosque. But religious leaders, when they come, they will cover that. And because we are brainwashed that this is the way, Jesus is the way, in quotes, Muhammad is the way, that is what we follow. But there is limitations to all this. I was taking my daughter to school last week, and when we reached in that school, we didn't have a choice, because I was telling the person in charge that we are not religious. And for her, she thought something else. And this is also problematic, because people like us are not allowed to live in the community. And I tell people, if anyone wants to kill anyone that is not religious, if there was a man and there is a woman, they will kill me first, because I'm kind of vulnerable. Again, another thing is about the entitlement attitude, whereby patriarchy has it. That is the reality. Patriarchy has it at the household level and even at the community level. A woman, for example, if I want to leave my relationship today, it will be okay for my partner to leave the relationship, but it is not okay for me to move on.
Why?
The same entitlement. You get? Me, I'm different. If I want to leave my relationship, I know my partner is listening today. Hata hapa kwa nini, I will go. But women are not liberated like the same way that I am. Yes, I don't have those education, whatever, but in my social life, I know what I want, right? But most of the women don't know whether to stay or to go. Sometimes we tell women, this relationship is violent. You need to walk away.
Yeah.
And I look at people and say, sometimes walking away is more dangerous than staying. You walk away, he kills you. You stay, yes, he abuses you forever, but immediately when this woman is walking away, she's packed. Tomorrow she's dead. So there is things that we tell women, we advise women, and I just want to bring all these issue. All women have their individual stories. I live with women, I sit with women, different women, in fact.
What do you see? I mean, because you've dealt with them, and you're saying that many times you deal with women who are going through domestic violence, and you advise them, when it gets to this level, probably one of the options that you should consider is walking out of this relationship. Tell me the reasons that they tell you that they will not.
In my work, I've never...
You have mentioned that
I've
if you
never
step out,
advised
you'll be killed.
any woman to walk out of the relationship. But when I talk, we share our stories collectively.
It becomes an option.
Yes, optional. Because when you say maybe...
So why don't they walk out?
Mine, all women that I've spoken to who have experienced violence, they've walked away.
Okay.
Yeah. And walking away...
Have they been killed? Because you said, if one of the things that is, if you walk out of a relationship, you
stand a higher chance
of being killed.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting that from? Is it from what you've observed?
You know, when you work in the community, for example, in the community that I'm working in Kibera, men will say, they'll just amka asubuhi. Now, waseme kwa vichekesho, like, unajua kikosa hapa, edit atakuarrest. The face that I have when I'm working in the community with women has given most of the women power to rise. So when they're walking away out of this toxic relationship, let me tell you, most of them don't live in that community, because we've seen also men stalking on these women, beating them, unaona, in a public space, and everyone is silent because, like, huyu ni bibi na bwana. So when these women are walking away, also, out of their own choices, they don't live in that community. They go somewhere else. Or right now, for example, we work with Usikimye directly, and where they are located, if we need referral, we'll use Usikimye. And the best part is when these women are now, they are referred to Usikimye, they will also get mental services, they will get support, they will get financial support. So when they come back in the community, they come back in the community when they're so much empowered.
It's very strange, yeah? We, having made the noise and having brought this awareness to the level now, it has to be discussed. It can't be ignored. This is where now you need to be specific. When you talk about femicide, it's deliberate killing of women. Deliberate. Someone has set out, that is what is in their mind. Now, there's some which are institutionalized. If you look at certain countries on this planet, let me pick on China. Children were killed because of a preference for boys.
Yes.
India, the same. Okay. Yet, when you look at the global picture and the numbers globally, we actually don't feature. Because 50% of all violence against women which end up in death is actually found in Latin America.
But Africa features as top, with 20,000 women dying every year.
Actually...
Then Latin America.
Actually, women dying, I'm talking about... that's why I'm categorizing
the femicide.
I'm categorizing it. I'm categorizing it specifically because if we want to ensure that it is understood, we have to be specific about what we're talking about. If you're talking about gender-based violence that ends up in women dying, it's not that these people hate women. It's what we've been talking about here. Okay? Now, as they say, numbers don't lie. But if you then read the literature on why this happens, and you read the literature based on this continent, unfortunately, most of the literature hasn't been written by Africans. So some of the things they point out, they say, polygamy, it is this, it is, and I'm reading, I'm saying, you don't really understand. You don't really understand this thing. But the point is this, when something reaches fever pitch like this one here, and it's actually a genuine problem, it's something you can't wish away.
No, it is.
Because young women are dying, people are dying, and the numbers are increasing. So you cannot look away. There has been a discussion that we've had in this studio for the longest time. We gave it a pause to focus on education. It was a mental health discussion. Because mental health, you don't have to be running around naked in the streets of Nairobi living and talking to yourself. No. All you require is for something to be either too loose or a little too tight in your head. And it's unresolved.
Yes.
This issue of a woman leaving a man and then the man following to kill. I want to give this as an example. When a man is disempowered, he feels himself that society, whatever it is, has disempowered him. That man in a relationship is dangerous. Because to recover his balance, he'll want to dominate this person.
Yes.
If that lady leaves, he's back to that position of disempowered, and even worse, he can't even live with a woman. Now, that person is going to have difficulties living with himself. Forget with other society. He's already looking at himself through the eyes of his peers and his society, and the position he started off with has now been worsened.
And he has failed.
And he has failed.
Failure.
Kabisa. Hata kuishi na bibi. Now, when it's put that way, now, such a person, can you see how this murderous thought can easily get into their minds?
Yeah.
Now, ask yourself the situation. People talk about South Africa as leading in these.
Yeah.
Look at how the African male was disempowered in South Africa during apartheid. Just look at it.
Their land was taken away from
those
them.
people. I mean, that amount of violence that you see, it has to come from somewhere. Someone must have harbored it, and now an opportunity arises, they can unleash it. People don't wake up in the morning and they are violent. No, it doesn't happen that way. Something must happen that plants that seed, and then it's nurtured and it grows. You talk of, say, communities where You call a demonstration, drop of a hat, they're demonstrating. It isn't genetic.
Yeah. No,
it is learned behavior.
Even the technique.
Learned behavior.
Missiles.
It is learned behavior. Where I can be in a suit and I'm carrying a briefcase and there's some stones in that briefcase.
Declaration.
You shock and say, hiya. This guy in a suit is throwing stones. Kwani.
Always ready.
No, yani, at the drop of a hat, you're willing to resist.
What leads to that? What's that learned behavior?
You see, the learned behavior is if it is instilled in your mind that you've been systematically marginalized, that you are considered after everybody else has been considered, then you figure, well, what do I actually have to lose? Let me give you an example. For the very longest time, when you had a riot or a demonstration, the two are almost synonymous. In a place like, say, Kisumu, you'd find a car being burnt, a tuk-tuk. You never heard of a motorbike being burnt or a bicycle being burnt. Why? People could identify with a bicycle or a motorbike. Tuk-tuk, not some. Car they couldn't identify with. So a loss of a car, how is that? How does that relate to them?
I don't know what it is. Never had it.
Yes. When people are empowered and people you know have those things, you can relate to those things.
Yeah.
And you can even understand the value. If they're absent, in all honesty, you couldn't care less if you entered the showroom and burnt all the cars. It doesn't register.
If anything, you who own the cars are the ones oppressing us.
Precisely. There's a violent streak that we see among border riders here.
Oh, yes.
And they're getting more and more extreme with time. It was, remember the Forest Road, the Wangaro Maathai Road, where they molested some young lady? Now they've gone to stoning cars. To the point where the car is completely... Now, what anger is this that these people have? I would have assumed if someone is hit by a car, you want to take them to hospital.
Yes.
That is not the case. You want to harm the person. That person doesn't know this person. They didn't leave their house with the intentions of hitting this person. It's clearly an accident. What is it? Now ask yourself, what is the narrative in their head? And what's the profile of a border rider? It's actually mixed. You can't tell. Whether they've gone to school, didn't go to school, you can't tell. But they seem to share this anger, which at the slightest provocation is unleashed. Why? Now, the mental health conversation has to come back.
And I think it has sufficiently taken center stage in this conversation.
Just pause for a second before I forget. I want to say one thing. Where the real mental health problem is in the leadership.
Yeah.
Because if you're living in a country and you're in the position of power to make decisions and you can see all this and you're doing nothing, there's something actually wrong with your head.
And also if the leadership itself displays some tendencies of mental health issues by how they behave, society follows suit. I mean, look at cases of our politicians cocking out guns and brandishing guns at the public.
Yeah.
So I think it's a conversation, as you have said, needs to take center stage, and it's a conversation that needs to go over and above people seeking mental health, people going in for counseling and extending to medication,
It's a much
extending
much
to it's a deeper conversation.
Yes.
And as I was saying earlier, and editor brought in the fact that education, that there are people who might not have been privileged not to attend the schools that some of us attended, and even gotten the platforms that some of us have gotten to refine our character and our image. But I would also want to say societal. I was bringing up the conversation about our societal interactions. Even in our day-to-day interactions, what kind of friends do we keep? And I mean, where I'm bringing up this conversation is, earlier off air, we were speaking about the entitlement that some men have to women when they send you money. The entitlement that I have sent you money, I expect you to do ABCD. The entitlement
every transaction is entitlement. But
yes.
If the transaction is send me money so that I do this, then the person that you've sent money, come on, let's go on.
But the point I'm trying to put across is, even forget about money. The entitlement that men generally have to women, to an extent that leads them to killing women. For instance, in clubs where I've gone out, I'm sitting somewhere at a social joint, I'm sitting somewhere, a man decides, look good, let me buy you a drink.
Refuse the drink.
Fine, I will refuse the drink, but I'm trying to say, Where does the expectation personally?
Why are you refusing a drink?
Better that.
Fine.
That's the entitlement.
So you see, fine. The conversation I'm trying to bring across is: at what point do we get to where society finds it so comfortable to be in a social setting such as that? You see a nice young lady, you say, I think I like this woman. You decide that at the table they are sitting, kila mtu apewe moja moja. Then at the end of the night, you're expecting that because I did that, these women must eventually follow me and go with me wherever I am going. So how do we deconstruct that kind of entitlement, you know? I think it boils down to our conversations, our friendships, because some of us, while we were growing up, we had some level of entitlement within us. But because of the friendships that we have, where people tell you, Ruth, to this extent, there is some level of pride in you. Cut on that. To this extent, you seem to be entitled. Cut on that. So our social interactions should be able to shape us and move us forward as a society.
Ruth, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And editor as well, Asanteni Sana, for giving us these 2 hours to have this national conversation. This conversation must continue. Very many comments on social media. Let the conversation happen in all platforms. Editor Ucheng is a feminist activist, member of Africans Rising, and Ruth Ambogo is a lawyer, governance and policy expert, and aspiring political leader. Hi. Thank you for joining us in Kenya's biggest conversation. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Spice up your life